distance in your eyes. Oh no, I've said too much. I set it up. That's me in the corner. That's me in the spotlight, losing my religion.
It was on this day in 1991 that REM scored their first UK number one album. It was their 7th album called Out of Time. It featured the singles Losing My Religion, which became REM's highest charting hit in the U.S., reaching number 4. And, of course, it's the song you just heard. The album Out of Time also featured Shiny Happy People. The video for Losing My Religion won a couple of Grammy Awards, 6 MTV Awards, but it was on this day in 1991 that REM was number 1 on the UK album charts with the album Out of Time, and Losing My Religion was a single from said album. What a coinkydink it is. That's the weird way of saying coincidence, right? What a coincidence it is that we play Losing My Religion on the show to begin our Monday, March the 23rd, together. And it was earlier today, the most bizarre thing happened here at the radio station. One of my colleagues poked his head into the studio where I get ready to come into the main studio to do the show with you. And he said, as the resident Catholic here at the station, I'm like, whoa, wait, what? If you're relying on me for that, we're all going to HE double hockey sticks in the same handbasket, pal. But I did the very best that I could. It is St. Boniface, right? That's the saint. It's not Bonifaci. Maybe it is somewhere else, or Boniface. It's Boniface, right? St. Boniface. I think the mediocre Catholic in me could still come up with the answer to the query when we're talking about the name of the school. St. Boniface it is. That's the way this Catholic boy was raised anyway. If I've been wrong all these years, may lightning... No, let's not even ask for that. Let's not even ask for that. As you know, the minute we begin the show every day, our phone lines are open to you. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. It is the most interactive radio program anywhere in the region, and we want to make sure that your voice is heard all day from 9 until 1. Mike is with us already this morning. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Michael. Number 335 here.
Farwell's Force member chiming in early.
You got it. Listen.
Yes.
Was that not the best third period in Rangers history? Like, it was something else, Mikey.
Mikey, I'm still trying to figure out what the HE doubles hockey sticks happened in Owen Sound.
Is that not a record? That might be a record. Down 6-1 and get 5 goals in 7 minutes.
Well,
if you look that up, that might...
I mean, that would be hard for me to determine the exact... Yes, 5 goals in 7 minutes. I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
That was, the heart pumping, the blood... it was like, that was something else. I couldn't believe that. I had it as soon as Sunday morning, I said, I got to talk to Mike about this one. This is one of the best third periods in any hockey game, probably.
It's just a reminder, Mike, that in junior hockey, anything can happen.
You got it. So now Friday, Mikey, it's time to turn up the heat.
Let's go.
Turn up the heat and get the Rangers going. I'll talk to you soon, Mikey.
Look forward to it, Mike. Thanks for the call. Great to hear from you. The Saginaw Spirit will be at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium on Friday to open the first round of the Western Conference playoffs with the Kitchener Rangers. The Rangers finished the regular season as the number 1 seed in the West, Saginaw, the 8th seed. Let's go. And more on what Mike was talking about from Saturday night in Owen Sound in just a minute. But that wasn't the only game the Rangers played on the weekend. They also played on Friday night their final regular season home game. And when the Rangers play, we often, the day after, get the chance for a little JP on 570.
To O'Reilly. Down low. Edwards off the goal line. Pridham scores! They've been looking for him all night, and they found him with less than 7 minutes to play. And the Rangers regain the 1-goal advantage.
JP on 570 is for our buddy Jack Pridham. 46 goals this OHL season, second most in the league, and not to be outdone, Pridham's teammate, Dylan Edwards. We call him Eddie. And here's some Eddie on Ficetti.
Christian Humphreys works it down low, quickly out. Rebound, scores! O'Reilly the first shot. Dylan Edwards was there to clean it up.
And for Edwards, give him 40 goals on the season. The Kitchener Rangers would end up losing that game on Friday night to the Sarnia Sting, but both Dylan Edwards and Jack Pridham scored goals, allowing us the morning after, or the next show after, to play a little JP on 57T or Eddie on Ficetti for you on the show. Again, the Rangers open the playoffs Friday night at home to Saginaw. To Mike's call a moment ago, if you missed the game Saturday in Owen Sound, it's understandable. I mean, it was a meaningless game as far as the standings were concerned. The Rangers rested 9 of their regulars, including Jack Pridham and Dylan Edwards and Christian Humphreys and Sam O'Reilly and Jared Woolley and Matt Andonovsky and Cameron Reed, and I could go on and on and on and on and on about all the players that did not play. And the Rangers were down 5-1 to Owen Sound after 2 periods on Saturday. And early in the third, Owen Sound would score again to make it 6-1. So the Rangers, with all these regulars resting, a bunch of young kids, the pups, Don Cameron would have called them, in the lineup, this game was over. So Josh Piercy and I, in the David Schooley broadcast booth at Owen Sound, just start telling some stories, talking about hockey in general, some Rangers stories, and, you know, the game was over. And then next thing you know, the Rangers score. Then they score again. And then they score again, like really quickly. 2 of those 3 goals were scored by Cameron Arquette. All of a sudden, it was 6-4. And I remember saying on the air, I better refocus here. There's still a game happening. And the Rangers would come all the way back to tie the game 6-6. Kitchener scored 5 goals in exactly 7 minutes of the third period. And they weren't even done yet. Owen Sound regained the lead 7-6 with just over 3 minutes to play. The Rangers pull the goalie, tie the game again, and it went to overtime, tied 7-7. I love what Alex Forrest, one of the youngsters, said to us in his post-game interview with Josh. Alex said, "This is how a Kitchener Ranger plays." You think? Holy moly. So what a comeback for the Rangers. They earned a point in the overtime loss, but a wacky and wild game up in Owen Sound on Saturday to end the regular season. Owen Sound needed that game to get into 6th place, so the Guelph Storm start in 7th place, or finish the season in 7th place, and start the playoffs on the road in Windsor. So our Rangers home to the Saginaw Spirit on Friday. The Guelph Storm will start on the road in Windsor against the Spitfires. That's the kind of weekend it was in hockey.
1, 2, 3, 4. Can I have a little more? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I love you.
Let's get to your Farwell Show 5 for this Monday morning, the 23rd of March. Number 1, 2 pilots based out of Canada have died after an Air Canada jet touched down and slammed into a fire truck on a runway at New York's LaGuardia Airport late last night. Officials say the jet was carrying 76 people and 9 remain in local hospitals, some in serious condition. Number 2, Donald Trump has extended his own deadline for Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz hours ahead of the deadline. Trump says the United States will hold off on power plant strikes for 5 days, noting that both countries had very good and productive conversations that could, quote, yield a complete and total resolution to the war. Trump says talks will continue throughout the week. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, Trillium United Church in Cambridge is hosting an information session on our water woes this Thursday. Takes place from 7 until 9 Thursday night with guest speaker Kevin Thomason. So that's at Trillium United Church on King Street in Preston. Thursday from 7 until 9, learn more about our water woes. Number 4, you might not think to combine cheesecake and tacos, but when I heard about the combination of cheesecake and tacos, I could not resist sharing the news with you, because that will form the basis of a new festival coming to Fergus this summer. The inaugural Fergus Cheesecake and Taco Festival will run on July 18th and 19th. I know it's a ways away, but you might want to put it in your calendar. It's going to take place at the Centre Wellington Sportsplex. It's cheesecake and tacos. What more do you need to know? There's going to be live music, a margarita bar, an artisan market, lawn games, and a complimentary kids zone, as well, of course, of lots of tacos and lots of cheesecake. July 18th, 19th in Fergus this summer, the inaugural Fergus Cheesecake and Taco Festival. Come on with your coming on. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this Monday morning, a group of University of Waterloo students are organizing Derby Days, which is a week-long campus fundraising initiative supporting Waterloo Wayside Centre and the Terry Fox Foundation. It takes place this week. It began on March the 21st. It will continue through this Saturday, the 28th. Last year, students raised over $15,000. And this year, organizers are aiming to surpass that milestone through a series of events, including an opening ceremony, fundraising challenges, and a closing banquet. The initiative brings together students across the UW campus to support both local community programs and cancer research. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Monday morning.
You go to the box, you feel shame.
I must tell you, and I feel odd telling you this, but we are not on Rogers TV Cable 20 this week. And I feel odd telling you this because if you're listening on the radio, you're already listening on the radio. If you usually watch the show on Rogers TV Cable 20, you're probably sitting there wondering, why is Cruise TV on Channel 20? Where is the Farwell Show? So I feel like I'm talking to an audience that doesn't even know that we're not on the other medium today. But maybe you want to tell your friend who likes to watch on Rogers TV that we are not on Rogers TV this week, and we will not be on Rogers TV throughout the OHL playoffs. It's a complicated system, community cable, don't you know? And there are rules around local content and how I can't even possibly. Like, I have a hard enough time walking and chewing gum, okay? But there are lots of rules and lots of regulations, and what we call the Grand River outlet of Rogers TV Cable 20 services Brantford, Guelph, and Waterloo region. There are OHL teams in each of those markets. We have our Kitchener Rangers right here. We have the Guelph Storm over there. And then we've got the Brantford Bulldogs away over there. And all 3 of those teams play in that Grand River area. So because of all the hockey coverage, the coverage of this show on a daily basis is on hiatus until the end of the OHL playoffs. I can only tell you that here on the radio. I don't know that it serves the TV audience. If any of our Rogers TV Cable 20 friends are listening, maybe what we call a crawl going across the bottom of the TV screen could remind folks, hey, the Mike Farwell Show will return at the end of the OHL playoffs. Because people that go to the TV and look for the show and don't find it might not know to find it here. I hope you have found it here. For those of you who have, as always, my sincere appreciation for your ears today. Tell your television-loving friends that we're on 570 News Radio every day, 9 until 1. And let's be honest, it's a face for radio over here. You don't need to see my face. We just need to have one another's company and engage in conversation. Your morning wake-up call is coming right up. Either you can make it or I will. It's a Monday, March the 23rd. Phone lines open on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Couple of things on my mind this morning. for our daily wake-up call. And, of course, you are welcome to weigh in at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Both are bigger picture, one bigger than the other. So I'll start with the biggest, and that is the price we are paying at the pumps. I heard some commentary this morning around prices being as high as $1.76 per liter in some places. Coming home from Owen Sound on Saturday night, I happened to glance out the window of the bus. I think we were in Arthur at the time. Whatever, it was dark, but I could clearly see the red numbers at the gas station that said 168.9. That, as they say, is a spicy meatball. And I was reading some things this weekend about the Making Life More Affordable Act that was introduced recently by our federal government. And one of the things within that act is capping NSF fees, non-sufficient fund fees, at banks here in Canada. And don't worry, I'm bringing this back around to the price at the pumps. But I didn't know. See, in my younger years, before I got far more serious about my finances, I used to carry overdraft protection. Every once in a while, I would bounce a check because, you don't make a lot of money earlier in your career, and I didn't manage it all that well in earlier days. And nonetheless, I didn't know that these NSF fees had climbed from anywhere between $45 to $65. So under the new federal legislation, those NSF fees are capped at $10. And it occurred to me that our big banks make billions and billions of dollars annually. Every quarter, they make multiple billions of dollars. And part of the way they do that is off the fees that they charge us for various things like non-sufficient fund fees. And I don't know, is it just me, or shouldn't Canada's big banks, which are federally regulated, shouldn't they be there in the best interests of Canadians? And billions and billions of dollars in profits, not just revenue, but profits. Why is that a thing when, again, those profits are often generated through the fees charged to our bank accounts, to the various things that we need to have the bank account, right? We need to have the debit card, all these different things. Anyway, it strikes me that the billions and billions in profits for the big banks could be capped in some way, kind of like we're talking about the capping of ticket prices here in Ontario on the resale market for concerts and sporting events, etc. Why so many billions? I can only think that the billions in profits benefit people who have invested in those big banks. But the little person, like me, tries to make the most out of the money that they have, and getting dinged with this fee or that fee or the other fee makes that rather difficult. It doesn't seem in keeping with the Canadian spirit, if you will. And so I thought about that as far as oil companies are concerned as well. And look, I've long been that guy that has said, when it comes to what we pay for various goods or services, we have to respect the person that first put that drill in the ground, right? All of the work that went into setting up the infrastructure so that the oil could be extracted from the ground. I get it. That comes at a cost. They deserve to be compensated for it. But again, we're talking about billions and billions of dollars in revenue. And the little person, again, I'll make it personal, me, gets squeezed at the gas pump. Every time there is some little blip in the market, those prices shoot up at a remarkable rate. And they don't come down nearly as fast. And you can't tell me that the gasoline that's sitting in those containers underneath every gas station in this region right now is not the same ding-dang gasoline that was there a week or so ago. But the price can change overnight by many cents per liter. And again, with the billions and billions of dollars in revenue, who is that benefiting? Who is that supporting? And why is there not a cap on that? I know I'm walking on some dangerous ground here. I understand that, because communism versus capitalism, right? But it seems to be excessive when it comes to all of that revenue and so much of it coming out of our individual pockets because we have to drive to work, for example. The slightly smaller picture, but something that's on my mind today as the provincial government gets back to work. How was your winter break, by the way? Theirs lasted 14 weeks, but they're back at it at Queen's Park today. And among all of the things that we heard from Premier Ford last week, a couple of them we'll be talking about on the show today. Capping those resale ticket prices, bringing your own booze to public events across Ontario this summer. Can't help but think it was somehow designed to distract us from the changes to freedom of information laws here in Ontario. And this is what Ontario Premier Doug Ford had to say about those changes.
There's confidentiality. I was sworn to confidentiality for constituents, and I'm not going to release personal confidential information about people's lives.
Not to put too fine a point on it, but is Doug Ford a premier or a priest? Are we going to confession when we have a conversation with the Premier of Ontario? What sorts of things are we discussing with him that need to be kept private because he doesn't want to share information about our personal lives? Are we telling him about the problems we're having in our marriage? Are we telling him about the problems we have with our kids? Like, what is it that is so in need of being kept private? I would submit to you that if I made a call to the office of the Premier of Ontario, I would have very little expectation of privacy for that phone call and whatever that request happened to be. I mean, how many times have you called a various 1-800 number, a call center support, to hear the wording that this call may be recorded for training purposes, right? So why wouldn't the calls to the Premier's office be recorded as a rule? What kind of information could possibly be shared with the Premier that it needs to be kept private? If you've got friends and you're talking about weekend plans, that can be on your personal cell phone. That's fine. But I think when you're the Premier of the province, there is an expectation that you live as public a life as anybody. And if you are calling the Premier of the province, I think you have a certain expectation that the contents of that conversation will be shared because, oh yeah, we, the public, pay all of those bills. And all of the decisions that are made at Queen's Park are made thanks to the money that we fund our provincial government with. The expectation of privacy, I'm having a difficult time with this. We need to be more transparent, not less. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I suspect that you heard last week that our provincial government has plans to develop its very own system for maintaining electronic medical records. This will help family doctors with what the province describes currently as disconnected software that currently prevents physicians from sharing information with other healthcare professionals. Now, I will forgive you if you will also forgive me if we feel like we've heard this before, right? Didn't we talk some time ago, probably like 20 years ago, about some kind of electronic health records system in Ontario? And didn't it turn into a scandal that cost us about $1 billion? Yes, those things are true. So what might make this different? Let's see if we can find out as we're joined by Dr. George Heckman, who's a geriatrician and an associate professor of medicine at Western University. George, thank you very much for joining the show. Good morning.
Good morning, Michael.
What do you make of this latest effort by the province to create an electronic medical records system?
It's a good idea. The execution, as you mentioned, is the devil's in the details, and I was reading some of the articles from the announcement, and I think the whole idea is a good one. I have worked with colleagues in Belgium, in the Flanders part of Belgium, where essentially you have a single record and everyone accesses it. Everyone can put information into it. And so the home care provider, for instance, might write something into your chart and the family doctor will be notified that there's something going on. And I mean, if that's what they have in mind, then I'm all for it. Electronic medical records are required to fix the healthcare problems that we've got. Everything is so fragmented, and it starts with the lack of sharing of information. But the information has to be usable. And there's electronic medical records where you can log on and you have to dig and look and try to find whether something's there or not. But then there are records where I log on and I say, hey, your patient's been to the hospital. You need to do something about it. So something that pushes information at me that I can act on immediately, or do I have to spend hours looking for stuff? I mean, we'll see what they've got in mind. I hope it's the supportive kind of electronic record.
I find it rather remarkable, if I'm being honest, that we are not at a system similar to the one you described in Belgium already. I mean, my goodness, it's 2026 after all. That fragmentation, Dr. Heckman, that you say exists in the system today. Can you explain that? Like, how does the system operate for somebody in your profession?
It operates, well, I think you're right. I've been able to communicate with my PC with someone in Singapore who's using an Apple device for decades. And there is no reason, because the technology is there. With the pandemic, and we're talking on Zoom, the technology is there. And so I don't know. But I think part of it is our healthcare system is still geared towards hospitals. That's all we hear about, hospitals. And then there's a lot of terms being bandied about right now. There's the word integration, there's the word fragmentation, there's team-based care. But it's got to be organized. And right now it's organized such that to get help, there needs to be a crisis. And often when it's a crisis, you end up having to go to the hospital. And these crises are not, chainsaw accidents or injuries. These are diseases that people have. They're chronic, right? They live with these things. These diseases destabilize over weeks. If we had a system that you could access and say, hey, my heart failure or my diabetes is starting to become out of control, can I see you today? And there are ways to do that. And people can come into the hospital, can come into the family doctor and have their issues dealt with. Right now, as a specialist, I communicate with physicians by fax, and we still have pagers. And when I log on to my electronic health records, I've got to go digging for information. And if I need to refer someone to home care, there's a form, and I have to fill out the form, even though, the information that I put on the form is already in the electronic health record. So all of these things, all of these barriers add up as a waste of time. And the flip side is, if you're a patient, you get a follow-up from hospital, see your family doctor in 2 weeks. Well, if you get sick in a week, what do? And there's no way for that family doctor to know that there's a problem. And so fragmentation basically means that we don't communicate. We communicate by faxes. We essentially have a system whereby, if there's a crisis or something deteriorates over time, you don't get seen fast enough and you end up going back to the emergency room. And so an electronic health record that makes information available as soon as I log on and says, by the way, your patient was in the emergency with heart failure on the weekend, and I can go to my team and talk to my nurse practitioner or my nurse and say, bring in Mrs. Smith because she had heart failure. Let's see her today, right? And that's the kind of way that a good electronic health system could support patients, could support providers, and keep people out of hospital ultimately. So I'm hopeful.
As am I, extremely, quite frankly, hopeful that we can get there because, again, it kind of amazes me that we are not in such a place. Is there anything, Dr. Heckman, that gives you pause as we move towards something that I don't know what it ultimately looks like? As you've said, the devil will be in the details, but to something like that Belgian or Singapore example that you've shared, a single source for electronic health records, anything that strikes you as something we need to be cautious about if we go in this direction?
There are a lot of players in the market. In primary care, there's 2 or 3 now, which is better. There used to be 16. When we started this 20 years ago, there was no guidance. Basically, get whatever electronic record you want to pay for. And physicians ended up, I think at the time, 15 or 16 different providers. So there's fewer providers, so that's good. But the functionality has to be there. And I've worked with some, and sometimes the records are up to date and sometimes they're not. And so having a good system doesn't mean that it gets used. And sometimes the system is hard to use. And if you come into the hospital and someone diagnoses you with a new thing, it doesn't get automatically uploaded into my record. And so the family physician or the other provider has to look at the note and say, oh, there's a new diagnosis of A, B, C, and D. I've got to add it to the record. The medications have been changed. So these things can be very labor intensive. Again, there's no reason, right? We have I spoke with someone last week about this, and it's irrelevant to anyone who's turned over 50. We like to screen for colon cancer. But the way that it works now is I can't go to the pharmacy and buy a kit. But he said, imagine if a bot contacts you on your cell phone or email and says, you turned 50, you need to have your fecal occult blood test for colon cancer. And then a week later says, you haven't gotten to the pharmacy to pick it up, right? And then you pick it up and says, you haven't handed it into the lab. I mean, that's ultimately what you want. Those tasks that are labor intensive and distract your healthcare team from actually dealing with someone who's actually ill. There's a lot of stuff that could be done to automate public health and these screening maneuvers. And imagine if we had that, we could get rid of colon cancer virtually. And so, again, an electronic health record is a good idea, but if it doesn't streamline everyone's workflow, if it doesn't help you reach out to patients and get them engaged in their own care, because that's the other bit, right? We all know from the evidence that if I can promote someone's skills in knowing how to seek help, how to look after their disease, they will do better. We know that. And not only will they do better, but then I won't have to chase them around. I can talk to the patients who are in greater need because of socioeconomic or immigrant status, and they can't access the system. They don't know it. And so, again, an electronic system that makes my job easier, that can work with patients and teach them and give them the skills and guide them, that's the ideal, and it is doable. It is absolutely doable. So I hope that that's where we're headed. Otherwise, we're going to have a single Ontario system that is really hard to use for everyone, and that doesn't help anyone.
I share your hope in this regard, for sure. Dr. Heckman, appreciate your time on the show today. Thank you very much for sharing your perspective.
Thank you.
Dr. George Heckman joins the show, a geriatrician and associate professor of medicine at Western University. Has hope that this single electronic health record can be implemented here in Ontario, remembering that we tried this. We tried this decades ago, and it turned into what's known now as the e-health scandal. The Auditor General said successive provincial governments wasted $1 billion in taxpayer money trying to get this system up and running. It boggles my mind, truly, it boggles my mind that we do not have such a system in Ontario today. It's 2026, for crying out loud. From firsthand experience, I can share with you, having just gone through the issues that I've been dealing with when it comes to my shoulder. And I knew that this had happened to me before, a pinched nerve of some kind, some time ago. And when I was sitting in my doctor's office many weeks ago, early parts of the diagnosis here, trying to figure out a plan, the nurse practitioner was able to pull up my file and say, oh, yeah, here it is. In 2003, you were dealing with the same thing. Here's what we did then, etc. How anybody else on my healthcare team, if you want to call them that, cannot access that information is mind-blowing to me. Anybody that I see within the system for support with whatever the ailment happens to me, and I recognize I'm not talking about something life and death here, but that information should be readily available. It really caught my ears when I heard Dr. Heckman talk about still communicating with colleagues using a fax machine. Pagers are still a thing. I carried a pager as a reporter at a radio station I worked at in 1999. It was about 5 years after that we were all carrying cell phones. How on earth pagers are still in use? I heard the other day, and forgive me for forgetting the department, but there is a department. It might have been the Prime Minister's office. I can't remember for sure. But one federal department in this country of ours still uses a fax machine. You can still send a fax to this department within our federal government. Why? How is that even a thing? How is there not an email inbox for us to communicate with? I find it, again, I'll just use the words, mind-blowing, that we do not have such an electronic health record today. I thought that the example that Dr. Heckman shared from Belgium is the ideal example. Do you have any concerns about us going down a rabbit hole again that costs us $1 billion? The Auditor General will do an audit and say, you have wasted $1 billion. Do you have confidence that we can create a single electronic health registry for us as individuals? So whichever care provider we're going to, they have access to that information. Does it worry you at all? Would love to get your thoughts, as always, on the Mike Farwell Show. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. We'll take your calls after this on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio.
Electronic medical records are required to fix the healthcare problems that we've got. Everything is so fragmented, and it starts with the lack of sharing of information. But the information has to be usable, and there's electronic medical records where you can log on and you have to dig and look and try to find whether something's there or not. I hope it's the supportive kind of electronic record.
Dr. George Heckman is a geriatrician and associate professor of medicine at Western University, joins us this morning to talk about the provincial government's plans to replace our existing electronic medical records system, which is described as disjointed or fragmented, with its own system for family doctors, some of whom are communicating with one another at this very moment via fax. Just the facts, ma'am, but not that kind of facts, please. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Are you as surprised as I am that we don't already have this kind of electronic medical record system in this province? And I recognize that it comes with a cautionary tale from right here in Ontario in recent enough memory that I'm sure we all can recall. The $1 billion, that's billion with a B, e-health scandal where successive provincial governments frittered away our money with the promise to create such a system. That's why it was called e-health, right? Electronic health. And we failed and failed miserably, and we whizzed away $1 billion. So, yes, we have to be a little bit concerned about that. And I will also add, again, as somebody who's in the system, not for anything life-threatening, but going through various parts of the system to get work done, to try to figure out what's going on with this ding-dang shoulder of mine, could the information end up, like, it's pretty personal stuff, right? I mean, it's a shoulder in this case, but it can be really personal stuff. What happens if it's in the wrong hands? What if the wrong person is viewing that information about your medical history? I can understand that aspect of it too. But the fact that in 2026, we don't have this single electronic medical record that basically goes everywhere with us, that we go within the system, I cannot fathom that it doesn't exist. Hess is with us on the phone. Good morning, Hess.
Morning, Mike. How you doing, man?
I'm all right. How are you?
Hey, listen, I don't want to add to your woe, but I'm a retired IT manager. I have a
don't do it to me.
$45 Raspberry Pi. $45. That's this thing costs. It's a computer. It's $45, and I have a home server, file server, that I can access from remote. All my family have their own account. They can get in, and they get whatever file you put in there. Somebody, you can give access to them, like permission, right?
Yep.
So they can go grab it and look at it, and that I can do that. But an idiot like me can figure it out. I don't understand.
Okay,
I don't understand why.
But Hess, can an idiot like me figure this out?
I can walk you through it. Yeah, that's
$45 you say, huh?
$45 Raspberry Pi. I'm sure. Well, I used to work in a data center, and the data center is secure. It's encrypted, and the database is inside the data center. Have their own security protocols. So it is totally doable. It is doable. I can do it.
Are you on contract? Can we get you in touch with Doug Ford?
I'm retired. I drive a school bus now. So, hey, you keep well, my friend.
Thank you. You as well. Great to hear from you. It's that simple, says somebody who used to do it for a living. Come on with your coming on here, Ontario. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. Anybody who tried to get a ticket to a Blue Jays playoff game last fall or to the Taylor Swift concert tour knows how expensive those tickets got on the resale market. And now Ontario Premier Doug Ford says he is going to bring in legislation, amendments to its original 2017 Ticket Sales Act, which was brought in by the Liberal government, then scrapped by Doug Ford's government. Tried to bring it back at a 50% cap, no more than 50% over the original face value. But now the Premier is saying that a ticket's value is its value. Even on the resale market, you cannot sell it for more than its face value, taxes and fees included. According to the Premier on social media last Friday. We are putting ticket scalpers on notice. Your days of ripping people off are done. That's from Ontario Premier Doug Ford. We're joined on the show this morning by Jay Goldberg, who's the Canadian Affairs Manager with the Consumer Choice Centre. Jay, good morning.
Good morning.
What do you think of the Premier's proposal? Scalpers are on notice. No more marking up tickets.
Well, it certainly sounds nice, and it's definitely a populist measure, but the reality is that if people want to buy tickets, they're going to buy tickets. And what we've seen in countries around the world that have done these markup bans before is that essentially what happens is people start buying tickets on third parties on the black market, for example. So you often see this on social media. People will turn to Facebook Marketplace to buy tickets. We had a case in Australia where folks lost $260,000 trying to buy Eras tickets for Taylor Swift. They showed up at the concert, and it turned out the tickets were fake. So what ends up happening is if you can't buy resold tickets on platforms like StubHub, safe sites like those, you end up going to unsafe places like Facebook Marketplace or WhatsApp groups or other places where people are simply going to buy tickets, but they don't have the guarantee of a refund, for example, if the ticket is fraudulent. So again, it sounds nice. It's a populist measure, but what ends up happening is it drives activity underground and it leads to more fraud.
What about the monopoly that those reselling sites have currently, though, Jay? Is that good for competition?
Well, actually, the biggest monopoly we see is in the primary sale ticket market, where Live Nation Ticketmaster has about 80% market dominance right now. And one of the risks that you have if you, for example, don't allow the secondary market is that Ticketmaster could end up raising base prices for events because you don't have this resale market competition. So there is definitely a competition problem in this sector. And I think the solution is basically in the primary market, if you want to get ticket prices down, to have more competition there. The Ticketmaster or Live Nation shouldn't have 80% market share. You need more competition there in order to have more competition and make sure that ticket prices go down.
Is that really what's keeping those prices so high? I mean, I just figured the artists these days, because they make so little on what they record, everything comes through touring, right? Isn't that what kind of sets the market price?
Well, that's partially what sets the market price, but if you don't have the secondary market, you don't have the resale market, again, if it's not legal, which it wouldn't be under this legislation, you end up having Ticketmaster with the monopoly being able to push these prices even higher. So even if artists want to set a price at a given amount, this monopoly gives them the ability to push that even further and even higher. So again, what you end up with this legislation is probably higher base ticket prices, and you're going to end up with people that are going to third-party sites that are not regulated, buying tickets that are potentially fraudulent. And actually, there was a great study done comparing the UK and Ireland. The UK doesn't have a ticket price cap. Ireland does. And fraud is 4 times more likely in Ireland than the UK. So we definitely have to worry about fraud here and people turning to these other places to buy these tickets, because we know that if folks want to get to that Blue Jays game or they want to get to the Taylor Swift concert, they're going to find a way to get there. And if they can't do it on places like StubHub, they're going to find another way to try to buy that ticket. But consumers really aren't protected when you're buying it on a place like Facebook Marketplace.
I struggled with this last fall when the Premier first started talking about these exorbitant prices for Blue Jays tickets, telling people just stay home, watch it on TV, etc. The thing that I've always come back to, Jay, is that ultimately the market sets the price, doesn't it? I mean, you can put whatever you want, the price on the resale. If somebody's not going to pay it, then that price is going to come down.
That's precisely the case. And so the reason you end up with tickets prices as high as they are is that there are folks that are willing to pay. There are people who are willing to pay. It matters as much to them. For example, you know, that Game 7 of the World Series, someone was willing to pay $3,000 a ticket because they wanted to be there to see the Blue Jays potentially make history. And it was a once-in-a-lifetime event, and someone was willing to pay that price. So as you say, the market dictates the outcome. And in that case, you had folks who are willing to pay because they wanted to be there to see history potentially being made. Unfortunately, it wasn't, but they wanted to be there for that history. And again, if you have concerts as well, the people who want to be there at a once-in-a-lifetime event, and if they're willing to pay and they want to go, that's just the reality of the situation.
Jay, I appreciate the time on the show this morning. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Jay Goldberg is the Canadian Affairs Manager with the Consumer Choice Centre. He says that capping resale ticket prices will just drive the market underground, where the checks and balances aren't in place for you to get a refund if you buy a fraudulent ticket, or perhaps the checks and balances to prevent those fraudulent tickets from even making it onto the market, right? You get a verified resale ticket. I do struggle with this. I really do, because it essentially creates a tiered system whereby only the wealthy get access to these really cool events, right? If a Taylor Swift concert is the really cool event for you, or that historic run to the World Series and the chance to watch the Blue Jays win it in a Game 7 on home field, my goodness gracious. I mean, the opportunity that presented. And I'll tell you, my beloved and I were kicking tires with some very expensive propositions with the idea that this is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. So, yeah, that's a ton of money to blow on one night in Toronto, but look at it as a vacation because it's a once-in-a-lifetime sort of thing. So maybe not. It's even more than a vacation, because a lot of places you could go more than once if you're lucky, I suppose. Ultimately, we obviously did not end up doing that because, boy, oh boy, that's a lot for one night. And then, you know, you could take a week or more of a vacation somewhere with the same kind of money it would have been for the Skydome Hotel at the time. Anyway, I digress on all of that. We had the conversation when the Blue Jays were making that run last fall, and it's just hitting so close to home again when the Premier says, that's it. I'm putting scalpers on notice, and we're going to cap resale ticket prices at the face value. Does this drive up the face value of that ticket then? Because the resale market is essentially shut down on those reselling sites. Or does it drive business underground? I think the latter is the more likely outcome from all of this, right? I've often wondered with electronic ticket sales and electronic resale markets, how anybody who used to be one of those ticket resellers that we would see on our way to a game survives. Do they do this all electronically? It can bring those folks back in a big way, I would think. So while you're walking to the Rogers Center, somebody's going to be asking you if you need tickets. Who's got tickets? Who needs tickets? People walking around, they'll make those deals right there on the street. I wonder if they'll carry, though, a little terminal so you can tap your debit card or swipe your credit card to make the transaction right there on Front Street before you go into the Rogers Center. Interesting. There's no question, though, in my mind anyway, that the price for events has gotten out of reach for most Canadians. So, as Jay Goldberg says, this is absolutely a populist measure, right? It's going to sound pretty appealing to a lot of people who think this means I can go to that concert. This means I can go to that Game 7. In reality, probably not, but would love to know what you think of this at 519-570-2545. Star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Let's go first to Sean. Farwell's Force member number 165. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Mike. You were saying about don't these special events become something for only the very wealthy? But if I recall, remember you saying that you thought capitalism was the best system in the whole world.
No, okay, yes, but I'm not. I want to qualify that. I don't want. Hang on, Sean. Don't misrepresent me, please. None of the isms are perfect, but I think of the isms, capitalism is the best that we've got. Yes.
But this is the end result. Any attempt at controlling the market is socialism. it will seek its own level. If you can't afford to do something, don't go. I haven't been to a concert in years or a sporting event because I just can't afford to pay that sort of money, so I just don't go.
Okay, so are you then agreeing with me that of the isms, capitalism is the best of them?
No, I'm not. I just can't afford to go, so I don't go. I don't think it's the best because I think it's too ruthless and cutthroat.
Okay, well, and see, anyway, I don't want to go down too far down the isms path. I just don't want to be misrepresented. I recognize the imperfections, and Sean's absolutely right when he says this is the end result of capitalism. I get it. I'm just saying of the isms, it's the best that we've got because if we're not generating wealth in the economy, then we don't have the money to redistribute to areas of need. That's why I say what I say. Anyway. Mike, Farwell's Force member number 37. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Back in the 90s, I used to work at 315 Front Street for the Royal Bank Systems and Technology Group. And I remember when I went home from work back to Milton at that time, you'd walk down the street and there was Blue Jays or the Leafs were playing, and all you'd hear is, "Who needs them? Who's got them?" And, there was these guys, right, and they had a fistful of paper tickets if you wanted to buy tickets. However, fortunately for me, I worked at 315 Front, which is right in front of the Sky Dome, and if I wanted to go see a baseball game, I just went down to the box office and bought it. Similarly, down to the Air Canada Centre in later years, because I could get it at the box office. But Mike, I have not been able to go to a Leafs game in Canada with the exception of going to a company box. Where I've seen the Leafs in North America is in Chicago, Detroit, Minnesota, and Colorado and Los Angeles. Not here because the tickets are so expensive. Now, I think what needs to be done. Capitalism isn't perfect, but they got to break up these monopolies here so we don't have this inflated resale values, not ban it. That's my thoughts, Mike.
All right, Mike, appreciate the call. I wonder what a Leafs ticket goes for these days. I mean, who wants to go anyway? The way that team is stinking up the joint this season. This is the Mike Farwell Show. Your daily reminder that not everybody is a jackwagon coming up before 10:30. It's another Ring doorbell to the rescue. You'll hear that story, and we'll take more calls on capping ticket resale prices. This is 570 News Radio.
The market dictates the outcome. And in that case, you had folks who are willing to pay because they wanted to be there to see history potentially being made. Unfortunately, it wasn't, but they wanted to be there for that history. And again, if you have concerts as well, the people who want to be there to once-in-a-lifetime event, and if they're willing to pay and they want to go, that's just the reality of the situation.
I guess, in other words, the reality of the situation is that only the wealthy can see Game 7 of the World Series or the Taylor Swift Eras Tour. It's, for me, I feel like it hits close to home because I used to go to lots of sporting events and lots of shows. My buddies and I would always go to a sporting event with the idea that we're going to buy tickets from a scalper on the way into that event. It's kind of the way that it worked. And even then, and I've never been a wealthy person, it didn't seem out of reach. Now it certainly does for so many of us. So when you have a government leader like Ontario Premier Doug Ford saying, I'm putting ticket scalpers on notice, you can no longer resell a ticket to a sporting event or a concert for more than its original face value. It sounds very appealing. I don't think it is perfect, but it's designed to just sound appealing. This guy is in my corner. He's going to do things to make it better. Let's not think about the black market that will thrive upon news like this and what the outcomes of that might be. Nonetheless, a good conversation this morning with Jay Goldberg following an announcement made by our premier last Friday. Every day around this time on the show, we like to take a moment just to remind you that not everybody is a jackwagon. Sometimes, maybe you've been ripped off by a scalper before. Maybe you've paid an exorbitant amount and you think that person really took me to the cleaners. What a jackwagon they are. Or maybe it's just the person that didn't use their turn signal as you were driving today. We like to remind you, just in case you forget, that not everybody is a jackwagon. And today's story brings us another Ring doorbell camera to the rescue. This is about Brittany Smith of Manchester, Tennessee, who saw an elderly man dropping off her DoorDash delivery. It turns out that this 78-year-old delivery man took a job with DoorDash when his wife lost her job and they needed to make ends meet. So together they became a DoorDash delivery tag team. Well, Brittany Smith's heart and the heart of her daughter went out to this man.
I don't know, I just love this man. I've never even met him. I want him to be my grandpa.
Wants to be here. You want him to be your grandpa. So she sees this DoorDash delivery from this 78-year-old man on her Ring doorbell. She posts the video online, and of course, it goes viral. And people start asking questions like, how can we help? So a GoFundMe campaign gets started and thousands of people donate to it.
It's just really difficult to believe that there's that many people that are that generous to try to help us. People that don't even know us.
We appreciate every one of them because it's taking a lot of pressure off of us and making life livable once again.
In the end, more than $500,000 was raised. And now Richard and his wife, Brenda, say they can finally slow down without worrying about money. Thousands of people, complete strangers, see a video online of an older man doing a DoorDash delivery. They learn the story. They contribute to a GoFundMe. And now Richard and Brenda get a crowd-funded retirement. You see, Sean, I told you a moment ago, if there wasn't wealth generated in the economy, we couldn't have all crowdfunded a retirement for Richard and Brenda and spread that wealth around a little bit. That is your daily reminder that not everybody is a jackwagon. Remember, if you know someone who is not, we're always happy to hear their story and we'll bring it to the show. Just drop me an email anytime, mike@570news.com, and we will share their story on the air because the more local, the better as well. But every day around 10:20, we'll bring you the reminder that not everybody is a jackwagon. This is your Monday edition of the show, of course, and that means a number of things that are regular parts of the show, including your chance to rant or rave between noon and 1. That's a long-standing tradition on this show. We open the phone lines for a full hour of your rants or raves. Just over an hour from now, David Drewe will be here with Drew's Views. And then in about 30 minutes' time, it's our weekly look back at this week in music history. And you're going to have your listening ears on today because did a former band member kind of rip off one of his former band's songs when he went solo? We'll play little bits of each of the songs during this week in music history today, just after 11 o'clock, and you can determine if they sound too much alike. That's all still to come. Right now, it's off to the 570 News Center for an update, and then another provincial announcement. I mean, Premier Ford flooded the zone last week, and he says, starting this summer, you good old Ontarian, you can take your own booze to an outdoor public event. We'll talk about the impacts on our municipalities next on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
This is where today's topics turn into today's talking points. It's local and it's Democratic radio at its finest. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
The provincial change will not make BYOB an automatic right across Ontario. A municipality must first allow it. There also needs to be a local process to decide which events qualify as cultural or community events. We as a council, along with staff, will review the details of the legislation once presented. But unless municipalities are given the funds to handle the additional costs, our tax base will have to cover the financial burden. At present, we have problems in some of our parks and along riverbanks from those who act irresponsibly or cannot control themselves while consuming alcohol. Financially, there will be impacts on parks operations and maintenance, bylaw enforcement, policing resources, and liability. We will most likely have to hire additional bylaw officers.
The Mike Farwell Show continues
on 570 News Radio.
That is Cambridge Mayor Jan Liggett in a video posted to social media last week outlining some concerns that she has about the province's new Bring Your Own Booze legislation, which will allow us to do just that, bring our own booze to select public events across the province starting this summer. Barry Verbanovic is, of course, the mayor of Kitchener. He joins us for a conversation about it. Mayor Verbanovic, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Always a pleasure to start my week talking to you.
I like to hear that. I'm going to remember that when I really need something on a Monday morning.
You know you can email me at 6 and I'll figure out a way to make it happen.
I know you will. We have done that before, and we always do appreciate the time. What is your view as the mayor of our largest municipality here in the region of the Premier's pledge last week to make BYOB available starting this summer?
Well, you know, Mike, this is not something that has been new to us at the City of Kitchener in terms of exploring new ways to support our events. And so, you know, we always appreciate where there's an opportunity given by the province for local tourism, cultural, and economic activity, things that help us, add to a thriving event scene. You know, I have to give a little plug here. Later tonight, we'll be acknowledging the award that City of Kitchener received this year from Festival and Events Ontario for having the best festival scene in 2024, I guess it was, or 2025, I think it was. Across the city. And so part of that has actually been some changes. So you'll recall both at Blues and at Chris Kindle Market, we, and I think also at Oktoberfest, we created an opportunity where, yes, there were still entry points into the area where you could have your drink, but you weren't fenced in on the ice pad of City Hall. And our experience with those has been quite successful, as an example. So we want to look at ultimately what the legislation is that the province is going to bring forward, engage with the community and with council on that, and then figure out what that might look like specifically in the city of Kitchener.
What role does the city have to play in all of this, Mayor Verbanovic? Because I get the sense this is another example of the province kind of telling a city what to do.
Well, so my understanding is that the municipalities will be required to pass a bylaw that will authorize public consumption in public spaces and to establish a process for determining the eligible events for that. So, you know, one of the considerations that we obviously need to have is what's the nature of the event? Who's the typical audience? You know, is it more family-oriented or is it an older crowd? Those are things we're going to want to consider. The other thing that we need to think about is some of our events, whether they're city-run directly or with one of our community partners, already have some partnerships with either alcohol distributors or with businesses in the community, and that works into their budget for the overall event. So we want to make sure anything we do doesn't end up hurting that. So those are all the things that I think, are part of the equation, and I think speaks to the fact that, at least from what the legislation is reported to be in the future, is it will basically create a scenario where municipalities can do this under certain conditions, but they don't have to. And if that's the case, then we can figure out what makes sense for our community.
The City of Kitchener, not too long ago, considered the idea of a pilot project, much like they have done successfully in Toronto, allowing alcohol in public parks. Ultimately, it was shot down here in Kitchener. Any chance of reopening that for consideration?
So my understanding is that, this particular piece of legislation is more focused around, special events. and festivals in public spaces and how to manage that environment. I know when we looked at that, there were a variety of things that were considered, including input from Waterloo Regional Police in terms of, how to manage those kinds of situations. And at the time, council decided not to pursue it. But we are a bit of a different environment than Toronto. I mean, as you know, Toronto is very dense, particularly in the inner city, where they were experimenting with some of these, opportunities in their parks. And I think we need to be able to recognize that every city has different needs, different realities in terms of their experience. But I also come from a culture where, quite frankly, young people are taught, to drink responsibly from a younger age, and adults are taught that as well. And as we saw during some of our events, like Chris Kindle Market, we don't have problems with people, running rampant with glue wine through the downtown. And so it actually creates a better environment, instead of someone guzzling it, being able to walk around and enjoy it while they enjoy many of the cultural and retail opportunities as part of something like Chris Kindle.
Mayor Verbanovic, we appreciate the time on the show today. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks so much, Mike. Always a pleasure. Have a great week.
You too. Bye-bye. Kitchener Mayor Barry Verbanovic joining us on the show to talk about what provincial legislation will look like at the local level. That provincial legislation being the opportunity to BYOB to certain events and festivals throughout the province this summer. Now, you also heard from Mayor Jan Liggett in Cambridge, who has expressed concern around the cost that will be borne by municipalities, the additional bylaw officers that may have to be hired, and the current costs associated with cleaning up along waterways and in other park recreational areas in the city of Cambridge because of the public drinking that is going on currently. So a much more cautious approach from the Mayor of Cambridge in this regard. As far as what we learned from Mayor Verbanovic this morning, that is in keeping with how I understand the legislation. It's not as though when we go to Cruising on King in Kitchener this summer, for example, we can pack a cooler as we enjoy the car show on King Street and drink on the sidewalk as the car show is going along. What the provincial legislation does is allow festival and event organizers the opportunity to apply for this special permit in whatever municipality they're holding the event and have looser rules around alcohol. And you heard Mayor Verbanovic describe how successful it was when the city of Kitchener piloted this a little bit more over the past couple of years. One such example, and I shared this last week, was that Chris Kindle Market, and you could buy your glühwein, and then as you wandered through the market, you could enjoy that glühwein as you walked the streets. We also had things a little bit more opened up at different events in Kitchener when it came to where we could consume our alcoholic beverage. And I'm all for it. Ever since my first visit to Europe over a decade ago, when I saw, and you heard Mayor Verbanovic allude to that as well with his Croatian heritage, it's just different over there, and it works just fine. I would like us to get to the point where it is fully legal to enjoy a beverage in a park while you're having a picnic on a nice day or something like that. And, you know, again, just going back to the conversation, when it was allowed at Chris Kindle Market and people could enjoy their glühwein as they wandered through the various vendors, it's not as though people were running wild in the streets. So I think we are capable of handling more. I know we're capable of handling our alcohol, and I think anybody who is inclined to not handle their alcohol well is not handling their alcohol well, period, no matter what the rules are, even under the existing rules. So I welcome the legislation. I wonder what you think. 519-570-2545. Star 570, 1-800-570-5715. We'll go to Alan on the phone. Good morning, Alan.
Good morning. I was just listening to the mayor of Kitchener. I don't know where his head is, but back in the 60s, when I was in Germany with the Canadian Armed Forces, we would walk around at our fort. The Mona Z Dam was close to us. It was one of the dams that the British blew up during the Second World War. And we would go down there with a case of beer and walk across the bridge and sit on the other side and drink our beer and then walk back. And nobody hassled us or anything.
Well,
and now
that's what the mayor said.
Trying to treat us like children.
Well, Alan, I think we heard different conversations. I don't think that was the case at all. Hesitancy around the public park, I get it, and I disagreed with that decision when Kitchener Council made it. Was it 18 months, 2 years ago, give or take? But I think we've been actually getting a little bit more relaxed and treating people a little bit more like adults in Kitchener of late. So maybe we heard that differently. I forgive me if I didn't pay enough attention. Dallas is with us this morning as well. Good morning, Dallas.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Actually, I just got home and just happened to flip on the radio during this particular conversation. You just alluded to one of your trips to Europe and how different it was over there, being able to, consume your beverage and such. You don't have to go to Europe. It's been like that in Quebec for as long as I can remember. I grew up down there. We could go to the beach. We could go to the provincial park. We could go anywhere we wanted and sit there and have our few beers or whatever and pick up your mess, and away you go home again. And quite honestly, I've never heard of any terrible goings on. Obviously there's the odd time it's going to happen, but overall, it wasn't a big deal down there.
Dallas, I appreciate that call. Just another reason for me to go to Quebec more often. I love the province. We rode our motorcycles through it a couple of summers ago. With the exception of the condition of the roads, my goodness, is it a breathtaking province. And forgive me, I did not know that it was that relaxed there. I did know you could find your alcohol for a little bit less money in Quebec, but I didn't know the rules. And it was more accessible. They had it in convenience stores, etc., far sooner than we did here, which, of course, is just recent under Ontario Premier Doug Ford. But I didn't know it was that relaxed in Quebec. So just another example of why, or to ask the question, why Ontario is so far behind. I am looking forward to this legislative change here in Ontario. I think we should be treated more like adults. I think we're ready for it, as Dallas points out. It's been like that as long as he can remember in Quebec, and it's not like things were going out of control. What do you think of BYOB legislation here in Ontario? Is it about time, or is it still too soon? We'll take more calls after this on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio.
And I think speaks to the fact that, at least from what the legislation is reported to be in the future, is it will basically create a scenario where municipalities can do this under certain conditions, but they don't have to. And if that's the case, then we can figure out what makes sense for our community.
That is Kitchener Mayor Barry Verbanovic reflecting on changes here in Ontario. As of the end of next month, so about 5 weeks from now, April the 30th, Ontarians will be allowed to bring their own booze to municipally designated cultural or community events. This would include farmers markets, movie screenings, art exhibits, neighborhood festivals. Prior to this legislative change, only organizers of live sporting events could obtain this type of tailgate permit. And this is where I think those who are opposed outright to the change get a little confused as to what this is all about. I'm curious, though, as always, to hear from you. We are the region's most interactive radio program. What do you think of the idea of having more places to enjoy an adult beverage beginning April the 30th. 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Again, this is a change that allows these other public events to be more like the live sporting events where the tailgating permits had previously been available. What the provincial government hopes here is that there's a boost to tourism because you'll be allowed to drink at the events. Isn't that an interesting way to look at it? I'm not going to that event because I can't have a beer while I'm there. But you know, that does take me back. And I'm sure you'll remember as well as I, the days when there was no alcohol sold in your seat at a Kitchener Rangers hockey game, right? We'd all go down to the Blue Line Club at intermission. And to me, that was the perfect example of the problem with the way that we have historically governed alcohol in this province. Because you couldn't buy a beer at a concession stand at a Kitchener Rangers game. So you'd go down to the Blue Line Club at intermission, and you had to drink your beer while there. You couldn't take it back to your seat. So what would happen? Most people would buy 2 at a time, 1 for each hand, and pound those beers during the 17, 18-minute intermission. How do you think that worked out once the beers started hitting you during the second period, for example? So when we first made alcohol more widely available at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium, it started with a section. And there were all of the concerns, right? Oh, my goodness, it's the end of the junior hockey world as we know it. The Kitchener Memorial Auditorium is no longer going to be a family-friendly place. And lo and behold, we've all survived. Yes, there are occasionally incidents at our games and every other game and every other sporting event and every other place where alcohol is served because some people just can't act like adults. And that's sad, but it's a reality. But for the most part, everything is just fine. And those of us who enjoy an adult beverage are able to do that and be treated like adults while we do so. But I think historically that's been the problem, where we put people in these fenced-in areas, right? You can only consume your alcohol here. And then if you want to be over there to the secondary stage at this outdoor festival or in the area where your friends are currently gathered because they're not having a drink, you just kind of get in this mindset of two things. One is you're a bit like a caged animal, like it's a very exclusive place because alcohol is so dangerous, right? And the other part is then you end up pounding it back as quickly as possible so you can get back out to the rest of the area where the event is happening. It just, I mean, when you put it that way, it really never did make sense, did it? So, nonetheless, municipalities are going to have to pass a bylaw of their own to authorize this use of alcohol in public if one doesn't exist already. And the event organizers are going to have to apply for the permits to allow for the bring your own option. So it's not as though, as of April 30th, we just go anywhere we want with these beverages. The event organizers are going to have to apply for the permits, and the municipalities are going to have to pass the bylaws. So it's not as though the lid is immediately lifted off come April the 30th. All right, I've got to get you to the 570 News Center for your 11 a.m. update. And then every Monday morning, just after that 11 a.m. update, it's This Week in Music History. And among the stories we will share today is one of a band member who goes solo. But then his former band says, hang on a second, that song you just released sounds way too much like one of our songs as a band. And the legal wrangling begins. We'll let you hear both of them, and you decide how close they were to one another. That and so much more coming up next on This Week in Music History with Brian Allison here on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio.
You take a thunder from the mountain.
I mean, you recognize it right away, don't you? Or don't you? Did you think John Fogerty's The Old Man Down the Road was a different song entirely? Or just a similar song? We're going to get into that on This Week in Music History as we welcome our good friend Brian Allison to the show. He's a musicologist who joins us on this musical trip down memory lane each and every Monday just after the 11 a.m. news. And don't forget Brian's Facebook page, This Week in Music History. Really easy to remember, and you can get these tidbits and so much more there because we all like to share our love of music together. Brian, good morning.
Hi, Mike.
I'm going to hang on to the John Fogerty story for a little bit because it's been a long time since we've had an Elvis Presley story on This Week in Music History. The king of rock and roll this week in 1975.
The king of rock and roll and films, if his career is to be given that legit credit.
Fair point.
So, yeah, 1975 on March the 28th. Elvis was doing his residency at the Hilton Hotel in Las Vegas during this time. And another star, a very famous Barbra Streisand, decided that she had a proposal for Elvis. So she was given some backstage status, went backstage after the show, and met with Elvis to offer him the lead role in her upcoming film, A Star is Born. Now, A Star is Born was a remake of a remake at that time with Babs. And Elvis was really interested in this. This was something that he wanted to pursue because he had done so many years of kind of B-rated films with unknown casts. He thought this might be the time that he could legitimize his acting credentials. But on the advice from Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis demanded a very hefty fee for starring in the film, more even than Barbra Streisand was going to be making. And he wanted top billing when the movie was eventually released. This is what Colonel Tom demanded for Elvis. So it's A Star is Born starring Elvis and then Barbra Streisand, not the other way around. Those apparently are very important details in Hollywood. So as a result of those demands, Elvis didn't get the role. The film production company said, we can't pay him that much money, and whoever stars next to Barbra Streisand is not going to get, not going to be granted that, status of being the first person on the call sheet and on the advertising. So he didn't get that role, and it went to Chris Christopherson. He was chosen to star in the film, and it did very well. It was good. It was a good remake of a remake, and Barbra Streisand ended up getting a Grammy for the song Evergreen and an Oscar for Best Original Song. So unfortunately, we didn't get to see Elvis on the big screen starring next to Barbra Streisand in A Star is Born, but it was a good film nonetheless.
I guess because of Elvis's premature death, it's a bit of a hypothetical. But look, because we don't know how big he could have become in film or whatnot, but I think this is the right choice. Like, we're talking Barbra Streisand here, Brian.
Yeah, and to take nothing away from Chris Christopherson, I mean, I saw the movie years ago. He was fantastic in it.
Sure.
It sort of kickstarted his career as an actor as well. He was primarily a musician at that point, but, it did open some doors for Chris Christopherson as well. But, it would have been really interesting to see Elvis next to Barbra Streisand in that role. If you know the story of A Star is Born, I would have enjoyed seeing how that went.
All right. We know that Elvis drove young women wild back in the late 60s and early 1970s. And fast forward a few decades, and we had NSYNC making history this week in the year 2000.
Boy, did they ever. Yeah. So on March the 25th, 2000, NSYNC set a new world record after selling 1 million concert tickets in a single day for their upcoming tour to promote their latest album, which was called No Strings Attached. That single day of ticket sales netted them over $42.5 million in one single day. Now, I believe that record's since been broken since 2000. I believe Taylor Swift has broken the record and then broken her own record a couple of times for tours because, you just can't get a bigger draw than Taylor Swift in today's day and age. But back then, it was NSYNC. They were the guys to do it. Some interesting trivia about it. They were the tour and the album No Strings Attached was really a response to them having a falling out with their manager Lou Pearlman, who would subsequently die in prison after being convicted of running one of the largest Ponzi schemes in U.S. history, which was which was basically anchored on his boy bands, and he left more than $300 million in debt. But it was an interesting story when they knew something was up. Lou invited them to a dinner at a fancy steakhouse, which he himself owned. And they had just finished a massive world tour and had sold out concerts all over the world, had amazing sales of their debut album, which was just called In Sync. And he said, look, come to dinner. I'm going to give you guys your royalty checks. And these 5 young men, they'd been living on a per diem of less than $35 a day each for the last year. So they were living hand to mouth, but they were big stars. So they went to this dinner, and they were handed these envelopes, and they opened them up, and they got each a check for $10,000. And they're looking at each other going, this is a joke, right? Like, we just sold out a world tour and sold millions of records, and we get $10,000 each? Like, that can't be right. So they started digging into the finances and realized that this guy was not on the up and up, and it took years to dismantle that entire system and to get a conviction for Lou Pearlman, who actually went on the run at one point and was living abroad and discovered, I think, somewhere in Asia.
You know what? Great idea. It's really sad that he took such advantage of these young men that he catapulted to stardom.
He was making so much money off the backs of these young artists. And again, eventually they got some money back, and they certainly launched their careers. And, we wouldn't have Justin Timberlake. We wouldn't have, all this great music that happened out of the boy band thing if it weren't for Lou Pearlman. But at the same time, wow, he certainly took advantage of these young artists.
Certainly did. Okay, let's stay in the relatively recent era. 20 years ago this week, and it's the greatest guitar solo of all time.
Is it, though?
That's the question.
Discuss.
Yeah.
Well, so it was March 26, 2006. So Total Guitar Magazine, they put out a poll, not every year, but every few years it would come out. And the readers are asked to decide what was the greatest guitar solo of all time. No other measuring sticks but that. What do you consider to be the greatest guitar solo in a song in the modern day? So Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven won by quite a bit. It was a fairly, I would say a runaway. Most fans voted for Stairway to Heaven. But other tracks, Van Halen's Eruption, Queen, We Will Rock You, Jimi Hendrix, Purple Haze, and the Eagles' Hotel California, all looked very good in that poll as well. But everybody thought that Stairway to Heaven was the one. That's the guitar solo that is the guitar solo of all guitar solos. And then on the 20th anniversary of the song's original release, it was announced that U.S. radio sources that the song had logged an estimated 2.8 million radio plays since its release, which means that if you played Stairway to Heaven back-to-back 2.8 million times, it would run for 44 years solid. So that's a lot of Stairway. But I don't know. What do you think, Mike? What do you think is the greatest guitar solo of all time?
This is a tough one. Like, it's so tough, Brian.
It's a deep pool.
It is. Clapton on Layla comes to mind. Obviously not the acoustic one. I think you got Jimi Hendrix Purple Haze in there. What about All Along the Watchtower?
Yep.
Right? Amazing. Another one that really comes. Freebird? Like Skinnerd? I don't know. It's tough.
There's a bunch that I think of, too. Purple Rain, Prince, that's just an incredible solo, too, that almost brings tears to my eyes. I don't know. For my money, I still put it back to Hotel California because I think that dueling guitar solo between Don Felder and Joe Walsh is just a piece of magic. But then some people will say, well, that's not really a guitar solo because it's two guys playing together. Is it a guitar solo if it's two musicians playing? I don't know, talk amongst yourselves.
We do that every Monday at this time with Brian Allison, our good friend and musicologist who joins us for This Week in Music History, Talk Amongst Ourselves. And what we will talk about as we continue This Week in Music History is John Fogerty. You know, of course, he had been with the band CCR, then branched off on his own, but did one of his solo efforts too closely resemble one of the band's tunes? We'll play them both for you as we continue This Week in Music History with Brian Allison on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Every Monday morning, just after the 11 a.m. news, we take a look at This Week in Music History with musicologist Brian Allison. Brian also operates a Facebook page by the same name. This Week in Music History, I encourage you to follow and enjoy these tidbits and so much more through every week. One of my all-time favorites, Brian, one of my favorite albums ever, and it's Pink Floyd and The Wall.
Wow, what a record that was.
Oh, so good.
And it's following up. I mean, you've got so much work by Pink Floyd in the rearview mirror, and The Wall comes out in 1980, and it's just like, wow, is there anything that this band can't do? They're just such incredible artists. So yeah, it was March 22nd, 1980. Pink Floyd began a 4-week run at the top of the Billboard 100 with the song Another Brick in the Wall, Part 2. There's a Part 1 and a Part 3 on the album, as most people know. This was Part 2. And this was the band's, strangely, it was the band's first UK single that they had actually released since 1968. They were an album band, didn't release songs as singles, but this one went out as a single. And it gave them their only number one hit in Great Britain, which was also a little bit surprising. But again, when you're not releasing singles, you don't generally hit number one, except on the albums chart. So Pink Floyd was doing very well. Some trivia about that song, Another Brick in the Wall, Part 2. The children's chorus, that actually came from a real school. So producer Bob Ezrin suggested adding this children's choir, and he basically went up the street from the recording studio and recruited 23 students from Islington Green School in London to come down and sing on that featured song, Another Brick in the Wall, Part 2. Kids were given a small fee at the time and given concert tickets, which I thought was a bit unusual. Grade school kids to a Pink Floyd show in the 1980s? I don't know.
Good point.
That's such a good idea, but you never know. Maybe they gave them to their parents. Anyways, years later, the student's teacher, a guy named Alan Renshaw, he took legal action and he sued for royalties, and the students eventually did receive royalty payments and recognition on future album pressings of The Wall. They were given credit as the children's choir of Islington Green School in London. So, you got to put that on your resume. Other cool thing I thought, and I did not know this about that song, Another Brick in the Wall, Part 2, that guitar solo that David Gilmour does, that soaring guitar solo, he did that in one take, no overdubs. They had the bars free, and they said, okay, David, we need you to do a solo in between these bits of music. He walked into the studio, plugged in, played the solo one time, and they said, that'll do.
Oh, my gosh. That's amazing.
Yeah. I know, because when I listen to that solo even today, I think, that's a really cool solo, even to play it in segments, but just to sit down and tinker away and come up with that and record it, wow. Incredible work by David Gilmour.
Love it. Okay, This Week in 1986, not to be confused with 1984, another Van Halen album, of course, but This Week in 86, 5150.
5151, yeah, it's 5150. Hit the charts and became the seventh studio album released by Van Halen, and it became their first to top the charts in the U.S. It was their first number one album. It was the first of 4 albums to be recorded with Sammy Hagar, who had replaced David Lee Roth, who left under dubious circumstances. And it was recorded entirely at Eddie Van Halen's home studio, which is called 5150. Despite Roth's popularity with fans, Hagar did very well with Van Halen and proved his worth. And then some, as the song and the album soared to the top of the charts. We had songs like Why Can't This Be Love? We got Love Walks In. We got Dreams. And 5150 was, secured Van Halen's legacy as a hard rock band. They did very well around the globe with that album, landed in the top 5 in Japan and Canada and Australia, and peaked in the top 20 in most of Europe as well. So that was a big release in 1986 for Van Halen, the album that was coming out after the departure of David Lee Roth. Some trivia about it, 5150, the name comes from California law enforcement radio code, which means someone who's suspected of demonstrating a mental health crisis. So if they catch somebody who's suspected of being in a mental health crisis, they term them 5150. And Eddie thought that was a great name. He took it to name his studio after it, and they named the album after it. And Eddie even took the name and created a huge line of guitar amplifiers manufactured by Peavey, which are still treasured by guitar players all over the world. The 5150 line, very, very good set of guitar amps. So pretty cool for Van Halen in 1986.
Wasn't it Dierks Bentley much more recently? 5150, somebody called the Po. I think it was Bentley.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Could have been,
some country lyrics for you.
Some people will still pronounce the album as 5150, but it's truly, the correct pronunciation is 5150.
Okay, this week in 1985, I had a lot of fun with this one, thanks to your notes, Brian, and I've got some audio handy. We'll get to it, but one of my all-time favorites as well, just as a single, Centerfield.
Yep, 1985, former Creedence Clearwater Revival frontman John Fogerty, he takes his album Centerfield to number 1 on the U.S. charts. And this is pretty cool because John had sort of stepped back from music. He had a lot of legal wranglings. He had a very, very messy breakup with his former manager. So he kind of stepped back, and he stepped back for about 9 years. It was 1976 when he had previously released any music with Creedence. So he took a long break to, sort of gather himself and then put out this album Centerfield, and it did extremely well. But yeah, the legal battles would continue, and John Fogerty was forced to defend himself in court for copyright infringement upon himself. So again, as you pointed out in your introduction today, that song, The Old Man Down the Road, does it sound like something else very, very close? Well, the record company thought it sounded too much like Run Through the Jungle, which was a song that John Fogerty wrote for CCR. But he had sold the rights to all his CCR songs to his former manager to get out of his management contract. He was so disillusioned with his management at the time that he said, look, you can have my songwriting credits. I just want out of this contract. I don't want anything to do with this management company anymore. Take my songwriting and we'll call it a day. And they did. But then when he put out The Old Man Down the Road, they said, well, that sounds like Run Through the Jungle, and we own that song. Even though you wrote it, you've committed fraud, you've committed perjury, you've committed, copyright infringement upon the song Run Through the Jungle. So a very interesting legal battle went forward, and it was eventually dismissed. Part of the court case actually included John Fogerty taking the stand with his guitar and demonstrating to the judge the difference between the two songs that he wrote.
Okay, let's have a little listening party here, because I don't know what that judge heard or how well Fogerty sold the differences, but let's just have a little listen. This is a little bit of Run Through the Jungle. Okay, so there you go, Run Through the Jungle. Now a little bit of Old Man Down the Road.
You got to hide it high. You got to jump up, run away. You got to hide it high. The old man is down the road.
I don't know about you, Brian Allison, but that's awfully similar.
Oh, the chord progression is almost identical. There's no doubt about it. I mean, very, very similar. But again, the question at the time became, can you steal from yourself?
Right, exactly.
I mean, I wrote the song. My songs are, generally going to sound similar at times. I used a similar chord progression because I liked the chord progression that I wrote. So why are you coming after me here? And the record company, and management were saying clearly, well, because you don't own that song anymore. And if you're going to steal from it, we're going to have something to say about that. But the case was eventually thrown out. They didn't get the win on that one. I think the judge saw that maybe it was a case that was, brought as a sort of, in-your-face type of thing.
Sure.
His record company and his management company were not happy with him after he left, and he felt like they were just being punitive, and maybe that's what the judge saw in the case.
I love it. Every week I learn something new, and we always have so much fun. Thanks again for being here, Brian.
Love it. I'll talk to you next week, Mike.
Brian Allison, musicologist, joins us Monday mornings at 11 for This Week in Music History. While we're on the subject, last week it was disco. Heather sent us an email to mike@570news.com, says, we need a palate cleanser for our All Request Friday. Enough disco. Let's go power ballads this week for All Request Friday. So drop me an email, Mike at 570news.com, or give Jen a call. She's answering the phones today. Let her know what power ballad you would like to hear on All Request Friday this week. It's the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Now, that cat couldn't spell to win a bet, but he carried this battered notebook full of his poetry. More soul per square word than the Lord's Prayer. He was the kind of guy that called a spade a shovel, and a violin a fiddle, and a lady ma'am. And I don't even know why I think of him now. Maybe because he never told me a lie he'd have to apologize for later. Because he'd speak to a guy straight, eyeball to bloodshot eyeball, like he'd never even had a secret.
And just a little addition to Scott Wicken's usual introduction to David Drewe every week. You are absolutely correct, sir. You are absolutely correct, sir. David asked, wait, how did we end up with that clip on the air? Wait, you are absolutely correct, sir.
Can we get that zipped filed so we can use the soundbite? You were absolutely correct, sir?
Yes, we can.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Just for you. There you go.
You treat me so well.
You had to ask for it.
You seriously? I got all the feels.
I'm glad you
I'm over here touching my chest. I got all the feels.
The man with all the feels is David Drewe, a former Conservative Party staffer, now owner-operator of Negotiating Change, Government Relations and Stakeholder Engagement Strategies. He joins us every Monday morning at this time to share his views. Let's talk about that federal civil service, David. I've been reading with some appetite since last week about the cuts. Like, Mark Carney is coming in with a scythe. He's going to slash, right?
It's really kind of hard to tell when you look at the numbers, and I didn't bother to convert them into an Excel sheet so I could graph them out, because you see these massive numbers and then you see a very small percentage next to them. And then you see these really small numbers and a giant percentage next to them. So I'm just looking for an example here. So yeah, let's call it $23 million in an increase. Big or not for the federal government?
Not.
Okay, 20.6% increase. Big or not?
Big.
Now, what if it's the same thing we're talking about?
Yes.
See, that's the problem with a lot of these. So you're looking at, and you see, let's pick on the Department of Transport. 652, we'll call it, $1 million. 19.8%
reduction?
Increase. Like, that's just it. So we are finding money to spend. Like, we're going up in military for sure, but also veterans is getting a big hit. So, like, in terms of hits, pardon me, veterans is not taking a big hit. They're getting an increase. But fisheries and oceans, 70% cut.
Yeah, that sounds very dramatic.
Yeah, that does. Environment and Climate Change Canada, 45.5% cut.
That's a haircut.
Yeah. Via Rail, 50% cut. What else?
How can you cut a service that doesn't provide service? That's my existential question.
Well, that's just it. Maybe they increase the frequency to lose less money on, like, maybe if they offered better service, they wouldn't need to give it so much money.
So are you saying I should just calm down, that this is not going to be the kind of civil service readjustment that I have hoped for?
Well, I would say a few things about it. This is, I think, the second of 3 rounds of cuts that are going to be coming. So you look at something like Finance Canada, and I can't find it in front of me right now. Canada Revenue Agency. 40.9% cut. That's kind of big. $4 billion they got to find. There's a lot of cuts going on, but when we looked at the other examples, there's a lot of money going to $100 million for Natural Sciences and Engineering Council. That's a lot of money for them. $1 billion for the Department of Infrastructure, Housing and Communities. That's a 15% increase. Like, generally speaking, a 15% increase is not what you would call austerity. So this is not all cuts. There is a lot of redirection going on for what he calls priorities. But the thing is, we're talking about this at a very, very high top level. And I mentioned that in the notes. Like, isn't it kind of useless to know that the Department of Veterans Affairs is going to get a bump of 0.3%? Or is it important to know internally what is going on in there? Because you can't tell me that that top level number means there's no change underneath the surface. What I'd really like to get into the weeds of, and frankly, what I think should be publicly available, is the $4 billion in required cuts for the CRA that you cited a moment ago. What does that look like? Where is that $4 billion currently being spent? Yeah. That's what I want to know. Yeah. And I believe it's now falling on the departments to make these cuts, but they proposed them in advance, so they should have a good idea. You know what I mean? It's not like, hey, you go do some dirty work and these numbers came out of nowhere. So these details will come. We just know that the CRA demonstrated at last tax season an inability to answer phone calls, period. And oftentimes when those calls were answered, the wrong information was given to us. So if you're doing that with $4 billion more than you need, heaven forbid what happens when you're doing it with $4 billion less. Okay, I'm going to be a bit sarcastic right now. What is it called? The poor man's shoe dilemma? Like, the rich man spends $1,000 in a lifetime on a pair of shoes, and the poor man spends $3,000 in lifetime on shoes because the rich man's shoes last longer. So he spends more on them, but they just last so much longer. Like, hey, maybe if we cut the number of people giving wrong answers, the number of Canadians providing wrong answers would go down, so we could also cut down on the enforcement staff correcting the errors that the first people made. I'm being sarcastic. But yeah, until we know what is going on with all of these departments at that human level, you know, how much is AI taking over? How many jobs are going to be lost in what communities? What services are going to be cut that will make sense to you and me here in southwestern Ontario, but will have a very regional impact in very small communities that are decided by small numbers of votes? Okay, if Prime Minister Mark Carney wants to distance himself, if he wants to distance himself from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, why in HE double hockey sticks is he continuing the pursuit of the courts around the implementation of the Emergency Measures Act during COVID? Okay. Give it up already. Well, I would tend to agree with you. I really would. And so I am sitting here trying to think about, well, why would he? Like, hey, you know what? The Band-Aid was already off. Why tear open the wound again and keep this in the headline cycle? You know, it won't be as big as it was, but it's still going to be there. And now it's his. It's not a Justin Trudeau thing. It's now something that he is defending. Now, to be more honest about it than that, it's the government of Canada, not Mark Carney. Fair. And the Justice Department has lawyers who get in the way of cabinet so often. No, and I'm being sincerely saying that. And it's like, oh, what a nasty thing for a conservative to say. But I'm assuming that this is one of those cases where the government's lawyers have put forward we have to chase this for legal reasons X, Y, Z. It's the same reason treaty rights can't be worked out as quickly as any prime minister would like, because there's government lawyers who say there, but if we do this, then X, Y, Z, A, B, C. And we can't allow that to happen as the government. Even though we love where you are, we have to go through it this way because we can't set the precedent of that. And by the time they're done talking, you're just glazed over, kind of like you are right now, and most of the listeners, I'm sure. And you're just sort of like, oh, you're a lawyer, okay. Like, there is this significant part of that where, like, friends of mine who were policy advisors, some of them, when they were starting out, their number one job was anything that comes out of that section of the department, you read through with the fine-tooth comb, because they are notorious for trying to bury stuff that the minister will then sign off on, and it comes up 2 months later and we're on the hook for something. Like, these things happen, and the lawyers have an immense ability to do it. But my God, if there was ever a time for the CEO Carney to come out, it would have been on this, just to say, no, that's the last guy. And this many courts have dealt with it. They've all been very unanimous in their decisions. And you know what? Let's concentrate on getting it right the next time and not relitigating the last time. Why do I want to talk about 2020 in any sense of the phrase?
Absolutely true. Okay, before we take a break, I'm going to jump a little bit out of sequence on you here because you have noticed the amount of coverage that is granted on an annual basis, the number of students who do not have up-to-date immunization records in our local schools.
Yeah, and I don't know, is this something we could file a Freedom of Information request on? Because I'm just very curious, how much money is the school board spending every year just to play catch-up? And who are these parents? I don't want names, but I'd love to know, is it the same people every year, the same families every year? Is it like every few years there's the absent-minded parents, so they have two kids in the system and they just oops one time and then oops another time? Or like, where is this coming from? Because every year, more than once a year, we have these headlines coming through about this many students unvaccinated, this many students unvaccinated. And it seems like there's hoopla. It seems like this is a big deal. But it also seems like when you have the same problem year after year after year, you try to find a better way to solve it. And maybe if we had just a little bit more information about how much it's costing, we'd be motivated to try. And maybe if we had a little bit more information about the makeup of the audience that is finding themselves in this situation, we'd be able to understand how to help them better.
It's a very good way of looking at it. Is it the school board, though, or is it public health?
Well, that's just it. You've got the public health people who say X and the school board who say Y, but it's the school board who comes out and has to say, you're not allowed to show up anymore.
Right. Whatever happened to the public health nurse being in the school administering the shots? I remember those days.
I do too.
Yeah.
And like, that's just it. I'm curious, is this a vaccine resistance thing? Because I find it impossible to believe that somebody who is vaccine resistant is going to just keep beating their head against the wall year after year knowing they're going to lose. No, but that's just it. When you know what the result is going to be, that the needle's going to go in no matter what, how many years in a row do you keep fighting the system? I'm not saying that they're right or wrong. I'm just saying, how many times would you beat your head against the wall before you just pulled your kid out of school or accepted?
All right. I jumped out of order a little bit because I wanted to tease before the break your suggestion that you would never appear on the Joe Rogan Experience. I'm interested by those words, David Drewe, so we'll find out why and talk about budgets still to come with David Drewe on Drew's Views this morning here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. Monday mornings, 11:30. David Drewe joins us in studio to share views. It's Drew's Views with the former Conservative Party staffer and now owner-operator of Negotiating Change, Government Relations, Stakeholder Engagement Strategies. He'll help you with those things. But he would never, and I mean never, appear on the Joe Rogan Experience. Pray tell, why not?
You have known me for a few years now.
I have indeed.
I like my coffee. I really, really like drinking a lot of coffee. There's no way I could do 2.5 hours without a bathroom break. There's no way I could do the Joe Rogan show. Like, it would be physically impossible. It would be the first time where there were these long pauses in the Joe Rogan show.
I'll just say, excuse me, while I use the little boys' room, and Joe Rogan will keep talking. He'll be fine.
Well, that's just it. What would I be coming back to? Like, so what do you think of that? Like, I don't know. I was concentrating on other things. I was like checking Twitter.
So you're being facetious. You would do that. That was a very good opportunity for Pierre Poilievre, and he used it very well.
Hey, there's a lot of things that I recommend for other people that just aren't for me. You know, skydiving. You do that. If you're into that, you go ahead. Not for me, thank you. Joe Rogan show? Nah, I don't like squirming while I'm waiting for my opportunity to use my bladder.
Okay.
But no, it was great for Pierre Poilievre. It was absolutely amazing. Like, when's the last time that he had a week of a halo? I can't remember since at least before the election, and how long before that, where he's had just a good week where nothing went wrong. And we're not even fully seeing the impact of the Joe Rogan show yet, because a lot of people have heard about it in a big way. A few of us have listened to chunks of it. I haven't listened to all of it yet, I will confess. But what's going to be happening over the next little while is people are going to start pulling clips. And those clips are going to start going around. And everybody's going to be starting to see these 2 or 3 or 4 minute segments. And that's going to be the next wave of this. And it's all going to be good for him because he did not make a mistake. And that in itself on the Joe Rogan Experience is something to say, self-congratulatory if you walk away saying, I didn't make a mistake. He baited me on Trudeau, and I didn't jump in. He baited me on Carney, and I mentioned that I'm texting the guy. Like, it was this big, I think I mentioned during the break that the worst coverage I saw that was from Justin Ling in the Toronto Star. And,
shocking.
But even that was not really negative of it. The headline was negative, but the story didn't reflect the headline so much. And most of his complaints about what Pierre Poilievre said wasn't about what Pierre Poilievre said. It was about how do you compare it to what he used to say? Or he should have done, all politicians should be doing interviews like this in Canada. If that's the worst that comes out of that versus all of the positive we've seen and heard, like you just mentioned, you thought he did amazing. I've been hearing that from a lot of non-traditional sources who are saying he did amazingly well. Like the talking heads, all parties are saying he did really well and giving him kudos. So, yeah. I mean, I have nothing at stake like he does. So, maybe if the Prime Ministership of Canada was on the line, I'd find a coffee substitute and a way to tough out 2.5 hours. But, yeah, I envy him. And the other thing that I want to throw out there is all these people saying, wow, he went to the U.S. to do his relaunch. And it's like, yeah, Mark Carney did his launch in the U.S., if we recall, with Jon Stewart. And then he pulled back an American citizen named Mike Myers to do the elbows up ads. I'm okay with Joe Rogan, just like I was okay with Mark Carney being on Jon Stewart, just like I was okay with Mike Myers suddenly becoming Canadian again.
Well, let's be honest, too. There is no platform in Canada that is the equivalent of Joe Rogan, certainly, and probably not Jon Stewart either.
No, I would say in both cases, definitely, yeah.
So, right.
And no, Justin Ling fairly says they go there because they get these cheap and easy questions and no accountability questions. Yeah, I get it. That's part of the game. It's fair. I regret, as he does, that they don't do more of things like that here. I've talked before about how the Hurly-Burly has great long-form interviews, and I don't understand why more of our politicians don't engage in stuff like that. But they don't. And when they get something like Joe Rogan, and also, let's remember, there's a lot of MAGA Republicans who heard Pierre Poilievre just say, I wish he'd knock that off. Well, not quite what he said. And Joe Rogan at the end saying, I would 100% vote for you. Like, that is a good win for Canada. Not for Pierre Poilievre, because none of those people are voting for him. But if that audience heard legitimate concerns about the trade policies of Trump, that's a good win for Canada. And apparently he was texting the PM about it.
All right. Do you think we can talk about the Auditor General in Ottawa and Ontario's budget in retrospect next week? Because we got like 35 seconds.
Okay. So student changes, Ottawa, Auditor General. That's going to be interesting to see what the Auditor General has to say about the foreign student changes.
Oh, okay.
The RCMP recruitment will also be interesting. And Budget Week at Queen's Park, I'm not even going to pay attention.
Why not? Peter Bethlen Falvey will have new shoes.
I'm feeling very cynical, and I've lost faith that anything substantial is going to change on budget day. There's going to be nothing that affects my life in one big way or another way. And so, if something comes up for a client, I'll be very easily able to figure it out on the web and not have to, I'll rewatch Ragnarok on Netflix again.
All right. Ontario Budget Day is Thursday. David Drewe is with us every Monday morning at 11:30 for Drew's Views. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It's the Mike Farwell Show. Rant or Rave coming up on 570 News Radio.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage outside, or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
It is your Monday edition of the Talkback Hour, and that means we rant and or rave here on the show. It's the stuff of tradition on this radio station, going back many hosts before me, and far be it from me to change things from the way they were, because it's always been a very popular hour. We used to call it the Hour of Rage. Do you remember that? Raise your hand if you're old enough to remember the Hour of Rage. But we softened it a bit, and I think justifiably and rightly so over the years. So now it's the hour for rants or raves. You rant because you're upset about something. You rave because you are not. You've got a big old smile on your face. For example, Andrea sends an email with her All Request Friday request. By the way, this week's music, power ballads. We're thinking big hair metal 80s power ballads or whatever else you come up with. But Andrea's email to Mike at 570news.com says, Happy Monday. At least it's spring now. No, see, Andrea, no, it's not. I think you're lovely. Believe me, I think you're lovely. But it's not nice at all. It was snowing outside my window this morning. When I came to work, there were freezing pellets on the ground and on my windshield. This is not spring. It's March the 23rd. Spring officially arrived on Friday morning, March the 20th. Let's go already with the new season of spring, please, and thank you. This is not spring. I don't mean to take it out on you, Andrea. That's just an example of a rant. It's a useless one because ain't nobody up there listening. They're not going to change the weather just for me, but I am waiting for a nice day. I would like it to be warmer. I'm tired of being cold. I don't want to scrape my windshield, Sam. I am. You cannot make me. Green eggs and ham. Let's get to the phones. Rant or Rave is going to start today with Terry. Hello, Terry.
Hey, good morning, Mike. Or sorry, afternoon now.
It is now.
Missed it by 5 minutes. Hey, Mike, for a future request, I know that you're already doing the power ballads. How about for a future Friday, how about artists who were in a band and then became solo and came up with hits like, Phil Collins, Sting, that type of thing?
I like it. We talked about John Fogerty and CCR during This Week in Music History.
John Fogerty. Oh, yeah, he did, actually. With that Centerfield song. That's right. He did in the 80s go solo.
Among others, yeah, absolutely.
There you go, yeah.
Okay, artists who left the band. I like it.
Or just took a hiatus, like Phil Collins. He always went, he'd go solo, go back to Genesis, back and forth, that type of thing.
But Genesis was kind of like a super group anyway, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Mike Rutherford was doing his own thing, and anyway.
Yep, true. Hey, Mike, you know where I was on Saturday?
Where was you on Saturday?
On Saturday afternoon, I popped in there. Antonino's Pizza.
No. Terry, tell me all about best pie you ever had, huh?
It was very good, Mike. I think I grabbed a medium 3 toppings. It's pricey, but it's good. I think there's something in that sauce that really, really brings out that flavor.
See, this is Terry, I'm trying to put my finger on it. Some people say it's the canned mushrooms. Don't know if you had mushrooms. Others...
I did.
Okay.
I had fresh. Yeah, I did order my pizza with mushrooms as one of the topping, and he asked, "You want canned or fresh?" I said, "Oh hell, let's go for fresh."
Okay,
and
see,
I said, "Go ahead."
Some say it's the canned mushrooms. Others say it's the diced pepperoni. And then still others, and I forget what the secret is to the crust, but these are all the apparent secrets to a Windsor pizza.
Yeah, and the crust was very good, very crispy.
So good.
And I grabbed, like you said earlier, the cannolis were good. I grabbed the cannoli to go. I should have eaten it really fast, but I waited a couple hours. It was a little bit crusty, but it's still good nonetheless. And
leave the gun, take the cannoli.
It was really good, and I still have some leftover. I had leftover for yesterday, so I had it for lunch. So really good pizza. Yeah, and I asked, I mentioned your name, and they couldn't remember you. I said that legend broadcaster from Kitchener recommended you guys really highly. And he goes, "Oh, well, we don't remember, but anyway, you gotta hand out your business card, Mike."
I'll do that next time, Terry.
And one quick, I think these in the OHL playoffs. I think Kitchener. I'd be very surprised if they didn't sweep Saginaw, or at least 5 games. Same with Windsor. They're going to sweep Guelph. I mean, I'm sorry, Walter, but Guelph has no business. They have to take a lot of playoff teams, but Windsor's going to smack them around pretty silly. But yeah, I think those 2 series are going to be done pretty quickly, Mike. You're going to have a lot of time off.
I'll take it.
Exactly. That was my take on that. I think the one that's interesting is going to be London and Sault Ste. Marie. I think that one's going to go the distance. 6 games minimum, anyway. But we'll see what happens.
We shall see.
That's probably going to be the best series in the Western Conference, but we'll see what happens. Okay, Mike, have a good day. Thank you, sir, for your advice on Antononi's. Excellent pizza, I must say.
I'm glad to hear it, Terry. I love to hear it from another satisfied customer. It's the best pizza I've ever had. And that takes me back to Saturday where I was, which was Owen Sound for the Rangers attack game at the Harry Lumley Bayshore Community Center. Going back to the days that I worked with Don Cameron, he would always get the French fries before the game because he said, these are the best French fries in the league. I have continued that tradition. Enjoyed me a bucket of fries on Saturday, as did many of you. I ran into so many people standing in line to buy the fries who said they were only there because they heard me say how good they were, except for Greg, who tweeted at me later or whatever, X'd me, and said the fries were so-so. Greg, reevaluate your fry choices, okay? Those are great fries. Just like Antonino's in Windsor makes the best pizza I have ever tasted in my life. And Terry now corroborates that story. Just real quick on the OHL playoffs and getting some time off between series, which I think the Kitchener Rangers will be able to handle Saginaw in fairly short order. Time off between series would be welcome because I was kind of looking at the possibilities, and I said this to Josh Piercy when I came in this morning because, of course, Josh and I do the games together. It's possible that our OHL playoffs could be travel to Saginaw, travel to Sault Ste. Marie, travel to Flint. Did I do something wrong? Does somebody want to punish me for something? That's getting a little bit down the road, but it's possible that those would be the 3 trips. Nothing like spending a week away from home in each series coming up, but we'll see how it all shakes down. Rangers open on Friday night on home ice against Saginaw. And as you heard Terry say, it's the Windsor Spitfires hosting the Guelph Storm in one of the other series. Doug is with us on Rant or Rave. Hello, Doug.
Hello, Mike. I really like the suggestion of Terry with the music. But as far as power ballads go, you should probably do something by Orbison or Elvis, you know.
Did they do a power ballad? I don't think they did.
Oh, really?
Name one.
Let's see. From Elvis, he covered Simon and Garfunkel's "Bridge Over Troubled Water."
I thought you were saying Elvis and Roy Orbison together, like as a duo. They duetted a power ballad. Okay,
or.
Either or. I got you. Okay.
But anyway, I got a rant, and I don't know if you can maybe look into this yourself. I am getting so sick and tired every time I'm watching TV, whether it's the federal government or the provincial government, all this bloody self-promotion about all these things they're doing to fight for all these jobs, and I don't recall hearing any shovels being in the ground doing anything anywhere. Maybe the power plant. But other than that, they show all the pipelines. They show this, they show that, they show everything, but nothing's actually happening that I can remember hearing about. And I'm getting tired of hearing about it because they're not doing anything, as far as I can see anyway. Carney's all over the world. They're talking to people, making deals, but nothing's going on. Anyway, I don't know if somebody's out there that actually provide a little.
Well,
appreciate it.
Okay, sorry, we're starting to lose you a bit there, Doug. So what do you mean? Like, are you talking about when we subsidize electric vehicle battery plants and they're not being started? Like, what are you talking about here?
Well, they're talking about. They show you building on these highways are coming through the screen. They're talking about 150,000 jobs. I don't recall anything happening creating any jobs. I don't recall seeing anything in the newspapers or being shown on TV to actually prove up what these commercials are saying they're doing.
I got you, Doug. Okay, so basically it is, here's what we're planning to do and here's all the jobs that will be created, but the shovels are not yet in the ground. I think I get that's where you're coming from, and your cell phone was starting to misbehave on us there. But I guess when we do build the highways, if we do build the highways, yeah, listen, don't get me started. I remember the social media campaign, and I saved one of the pictures from the province from the last election campaign because they were talking about expanding or widening Highway 7, improving Highway 7, and the picture did not show Highway 7 at all. I know Highway 7 from Kitchener to Guelph. That picture did not show it. So understand that frustration, Doug. Kyle is next on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon, Kyle.
Good afternoon. First of all, my condolences to everybody at LaGuardia. Such a tragic and awful accident that happened. The second thing I want to rave about is my 2 tickets that I got for the weekend, Friday and Sunday. We made it a Rangers festivities, I guess you could say. Get to show up on my very first ever playoff game to see a Rangers game in a playoff situation. Both days, Friday and Sunday, so I'm excited for that. Take the family. My dad's coming up from Grimsby, so that'll be fun. I got a question for you. How good are you at looking at autographs, Mike? My beloved, my other half, her stepdad, sent me a photo of his Kitchener Rangers jersey that he has signed, but he doesn't remember the year that he got it signed. And there's a bunch of signatures on there, and I was trying to look at it and trying to verify, numbers and try to figure out the names and stuff. But how good are you at that?
I can usually figure it out by the number.
All right, and now here's another question you wanted me to ask you. Would you wear a signed jersey to a game?
Would I wear a signed jersey to a game?
Like a Rangers jersey signed by the entire team at the year that he got it. Would you wear that to a game or would you not?
Oh, of course I would.
Okay, then that's what I told him too. So, all right, I'm going to send you the photo this afternoon. If you don't mind helping, that'd be great, Mike. I appreciate it. Thanks, buddy. Have a good day.
All right, Kyle, you too. I'm here to help. That's what I'm here for, and I'm here to take your calls during Rant or Rave every Monday from noon until 1. We'll get right back to your calls after this on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. On Mondays, your Talkback Hour is reserved for rants and or raves. We get as many on the air as we can because I just keep going to the phone lines and hearing those rants and or raves. Jerry is next. Good afternoon, Jerry.
Good afternoon, Mike.
Rant or rave?
I got a bit of both.
Okay.
So, start with the raves, and congratulations on both you and Josh for calling a great regular season. I mean, we're all just getting ready for the playoffs, but you guys have done a great job, and I was very impressed. Mentioned at the beginning with Josh, he's done an amazing job. So congratulations to you both.
Thank you. We enjoy the job that we do.
You must. You do a lot of travel.
We do.
And, I would not look forward to that schedule you thought might happen. That would be a tough go. But anyways, my rant is a little bit on the politics. I just completely lost faith in both our federal and provincial politics. I don't know how you can get voted in by one party and then decide partway through you want to walk across the floor and join another party. That's a complete kick to your constituents that voted for you. I don't know how that's even allowed or possible. And even on the provincial level, what's going on or appears to be going on with Ford, he's under a court order to hand over his phone records. He's not doing that, so it should put him in contempt. But he's just going to go, well, I'll change the laws so that I don't have to. I don't see how that is even legal and possible to be able to do that. Like, that's such a conflict of interest. But I think we really need to take note what's going on, and they just seem to do what they want to do and no accountability. And that's pretty scary.
Jerry, I appreciate the call. I think you probably know I share that sentiment on floor crossing. And I understand how there is another side to that argument, that side being that we are electing individuals, we are not electing parties, and we want those individuals to have the freedom to do what they think is in their ridings, their voters' best interests. And I am loath to try to curtail those freedoms in any way. So I do struggle a bit, but I keep landing on the side of simply go to a by-election. And really, even if, this is where I get most bothered, even if we were to say, okay, you know, this whole floor crossing thing, it's part of the democratic process under our Westminster parliamentary system. I get it. It's well within the rules, this freedom of conscience, all these different things, fine. But then could you try, please, to make it sound less sleazy? I mean, on the one hand, you've got an MP going to the Conservative Christmas party the night before he attends the Liberal Christmas party as a new Liberal. You've got another who endorses a candidate for the leadership of her existing party before she walks out the door from that party and joins another party. You've got the guy who says, I'm resigning because I want to spend more time with my family. And then, oh, you mean the other team wants me? Now I'm coming back. Like, come on with your coming on, would you? So just make it, just fake it a little bit better so it seems a little bit less sleazy what it is that you're doing. But I would still defer to or land on the argument that we should just go to a by-election then. You want to switch? You think switching parties is in the best interests of your constituents, then let the constituents decide if that's what's in their best interest. And we'll just go from there. Because I can certainly tell you, this would just be me, but any floor crosser that I had voted for would not get my vote again. Simple as that. Because I voted for you for certain reasons, and you seemed to abandon those reasons for your own political gain. That's my 2 cents on it. Maybe that was 4 cents. Dallas is next on Rant or Rave. Hello, Dallas.
Yeah, I'm still laughing from your last comment. Sleazy.
Sleazy. I used sleazy a couple of times. I should watch my language, eh?
That's okay.
Okay.
Because you're quite true. Anyway, 2 quick things.
Yes.
As far as the rave goes, I wanted to add in, while I was talking to you earlier, that Montreal and Old Quebec City, both of them have a strip of where there's about 10 or 12, maybe 15 bars, I believe it is on St. Catharines, that you can literally walk in and buy your beer at the first one and go out on the street and carry on and walk into the next one and so on and so on and so on.
I had no idea you could do that.
Yeah, well, anyway, I have a little rant. When at 12 o'clock news, I heard about a 12-year-old doing these things out in Kitchener, and he was apprehended and also charged with a release order. Like a 12-year-old. Where are the parents? And that's all I got to say.
All right, Dallas, I appreciate the call. I remember saying that following an incident in Cambridge a year, maybe 2 years ago, from an old friend of mine, someone I had worked with professionally in this community. Like, I'm in my role, they were in theirs. We had worked together and had countless conversations on various shows that I've hosted over many, many years. And there was a similar incident to which Dallas is referring, about this 12-year-old in Guelph, facing 2 counts of robbery, possessing weapons for a dangerous purpose, and breaching a release order. So they were already under some sort of supervision at 12 years old. And Dallas is, where are the parents? this previous incident that caused a stir with a former colleague, if you will, was in Cambridge, and it was, I can't remember if the car was stolen, but anyway, there was a gun in the vehicle, the driver got shot, the car crashed, all of these people were under the age of 16, and I just responded online saying their parents must be so proud. And this former colleague just thought that was the most unkind thing that I could possibly say, and I didn't understand the seriousness of the situation that led to this. And I don't know. I know when I was 16, I know when I was 12, where I had to be and when. To Dallas's point, where were the parents and all of that? I know every family dynamic is different, but when you're 12, I think we all know where we're supposed to be. And if you don't know where you're supposed to be, that's where the problem begins to break down. Anyway, there's my tangent on that. Rant or Rave continues. We'll get back to the phone lines. They are busy, but there is one open for you if you want to be a part of it on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. Every day from noon until 1, we open our phone lines, giving you the chance to have your say on the issues of the day or to make something the issue of the day. If it's important to you, it's important to us. And on Mondays, the Talkback Hour is reserved for your rants and or raves. Just make the call and rant about something that's got you upset or rave about something that you are not upset about. You want to share and spread some joy. Preston Paul is with us next. Farwell's Force member number 45. Good afternoon, my friend.
Good afternoon, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing real well, all things considered. Like, this weather sucks, Paul, but I'm doing okay.
It sure does, with a few other words I could throw in there, too. But,
amen. Amen.
We won't go there. Hey, I just wondered if when you sleep, do you actually call out your sponsors when you're sleeping?
You know what? Here's a true story. Just this weekend, I did have a dream about one of my sponsors. So I guess the answer to your question would be yes. Why do you ask, Paul?
Well, it's just funny because I hear, the David Schooley broadcast booth all the time, and all the other ones you do. I'm thinking, man, you just rhyme them off like it's nothing. And I'm thinking how many times you do it. Do you ever counted how many times you actually say it in one hockey game?
So here... I love the way you listen. I am actually required under the contract to say it a minimum number of times.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm telling tales out of school, but for the broadcast booth, I have to say it 15 times. The Moose Winooski's power play has to get 6 mentions. The Swanson's Home Hardware Building Center face-off, another 6, and it just keeps going from there. There is actually somebody back at the radio station whose job it is to make a note every time I say the things I'm supposed to say, and then they submit that to the client and say, see, Farwell did his job. So I don't keep count, but I try to make sure they get all of their mentions done.
Well, that's funny. That's pretty good. Your Blacklocks on Wednesdays.
Yes.
I'd like to see that go to a half an hour, see if you get 2 blocks with him. I think the first block is, considering it's federal stuff, and he's really good at what he does. I'd love to see that stretch into a full half an hour.
Well, the only challenge, Paul, is he is in high demand. Tom Korski, the managing editor of the Blacklocks Reporter. So we can usually, drag him out to 11 or 12 minutes, but that's about all the time he's got.
Okay. All righty. Well, you have yourself a great day, Mike.
Thanks, Paul. You too. It's great to hear from you. It is a regular Wednesday morning segment. Just after the 10 a.m. news, we check in with the managing editor of the Blacklocks Reporter, Tom Korski. Blacklocks is the only reporter-owned and operated newsroom covering our nation's capital. You get the stories that you don't tend to get anywhere else or in many other places. And along with being the managing editor and contributing to the content at Blacklocks, Tom is in demand as a commentator. He joins numerous radio stations, ours included. So every Wednesday morning, get that different perspective by all means. by joining us for Minding Ottawa's Business. And check out the Black Locks Reporter for yourself. I'm not shy about pointing you to other quality journalism. Just go to blacklocks.ca. See for yourself what it's all about. If you like it, you subscribe to it, and off you go. But I find it well worth it. And I really enjoy those chats with Tom. I'm glad Paul does too. And maybe someday we'll try to, maybe for bonus days, we'll find some bonus Tom Korski coverage and get him on for a little bit longer. Gary is next on Rant or Rave. Good afternoon, Gary.
Farwell, how are you today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you today?
I've enjoyed the show. Just a couple of quick housekeeping items, Mike.
Yes, sir.
A couple of weeks ago, you mentioned something on air when you were talking about the gentleman who put the expressway together in Kitchener-Waterloo.
Yes.
And you got a good guffaw out of me when you...
Uh-oh. You cut out right when you said, I got a good guffaw out of you. What did I do, Gary?
You mentioned that they didn't do the same thing in London.
Correct.
Driving through London is just an absolute nightmare.
Oh, isn't it the worst?
It's rush hour 24/7. It doesn't matter where you are.
You're right.
I won't take too much of your time. Quickly threw in another power ballad for you this morning. You and I are probably the two, well, probably a few more people listening in that could remember this one. Benny Mardonis, Into the Night, taking me back to spinning the tunes in 1050 CFYN in Sault Ste. Marie.
Oh, Gary, do I ever love that. Well done, sir.
So you can play that on Friday. And so I'm just doing some work in KW this morning. I'm a Guelph resident coming in on King Street. Took a right on Queen. I didn't know that I needed a four-wheel armored vehicle to drive those roads in KW recently.
Gary, we're not doing really well in that department, are we? For whatever you do today, my friend, stay off of Victoria Street. Oh my word, I took it the other day. It's a corduroy road.
Well, that's where I worked my way home back to Guelph. I was downtown on Queen Street delivering a couple of things to some developer clients. And then I thought, well, just right across in Lancaster and on to Victoria and coming home, and holy mackerel. But
I took Victoria all the way from Ira Needles into the downtown last week for the downtown showdown with the Kitchener Rangers. And really from Fisher Hallman, mostly Westmount on down, though, it is just a mess. So I think we're different parts of the same road giving us trouble.
And apparently, I need an identification Farwell number. How do I get my hands on one of those?
Oh, let me. I can get your hands on one of those right now. You're talking to the right guy, Gary, because I'm Farwell. You see. All right.
Apparently,
I'm gonna open my trusty notepad here because I don't keep this on a computer, much to the chagrin of my younger, hipper listeners. And oh my gosh, we're on a new page. I got to turn the page. We're up to, where are we? 340. No, I thought. Yeah. Okay. I got to go higher than that. Or did we fill it up? Okay, I'm going to go 3. I'm messing something up here, Gary. I really am. So this is why I need to put it on my computer. I got all these papers in front of me right now. Okay, the last number I have written down is number 343.
343.
So I feel like I'm making a mistake. I know I'm making a mistake. I'll tell you what, Gary. What number would you like? You want just the next one in sequence?
How about 350?
Well, see, that's why I'm worried here. I think I've got that one used already. Did I not start a new page? I'm doing a very poor job here. This is awful. I've lost a page.
Can I give you my year of birth? 590.
There you go. 590 is going to work just fine, my friend. And I'm going to get my feces amalgamated over here because I have got papers out of order somehow. Okay, you're 590.
I think I might have cut out for him. I'm just on Victoria Road here.
I got you at 590, Gary.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mike, and thanks for the time. Have a wonderful day.
Great to hear from you. Oh, that's a blast from the past, and boy, do I ever enjoy it. I am really, I'm upset with myself, though, now. In case you can't tell, like, this is all just happening in real time. Did I mess up? I know you've been telling me for weeks, you should put this on an Excel spreadsheet. It's searchable. It's this, it's that. I know we're already up beyond 343. I know we are. Where did hey, Did one of you, it's you people, I'm pointing at the people on the other side of the glass. Did they did they come in here and take my papers just to mess with me? Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. It's under this book. Hang on. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Oh, I'm so embarrassed. See, I knew it. We're at number 352 in sequence. The page was right there. Gary, I'm so sorry. You're still getting 590, pal. It's yours. Like 590, Sportsnet 590 The Fan. I worked there for a minute or two. I'm relieved now. I thought I lost a piece of paper. That was stressful. Now, to make things far less stressful, let's talk to Grant on Rant or Rave. It's the Grant Rant time. Hello, Grant.
And it's our champ.
Who, what now?
You.
I'm what?
Our champ.
I'm your champ?
I was listening to...
And ever since I've been known a flurry to the solar plexus. And ever since I've been known as the champ.
Yeah, I was just listening to this Christian program, and they were calling this host champ.
Is that because he punched out the devil?
No, I can't.
Do you remember that from WKRP in Cincinnati, where he body slams Satan right into the old vending machine, something like that? They had a preacher on Sunday mornings on WKRP in Cincinnati, and he was gonna body slam that devil straight into the vending machine in the sky or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay.
No? Yeah, I liked the game on Saturday. It was exciting, I thought it was. I got to give the call-ups a lot of credit for not letting this get away. Because when I saw 7-1, oh my god, or 6-1,
yeah.
I thought, geez, I don't know. This could be the end, but they kept on plugging away at it. And I asked you this a while last week, but you didn't really touch on it. If a team gets to host the Memorial Cup, and that team for some reason is at the bottom of the standings, would they get that taken away from them?
Yeah, Grant, that's a really good question. And thank you for bringing it up again, because I remember you had said a couple of things that I wanted to follow up on, and that was one of them. But because I am who I am, I followed up on one and then completely forgot the other. What's interesting about Grant's question is how applicable it may soon be. No, it couldn't possibly be applicable again soon, could it? Here's the thing. In junior hockey, there is a Memorial Cup host team, and the host team is guaranteed to play in the tournament. The Canadian Hockey League does it this way in an effort to ensure that there is some interest in the tournament because there's a home team, right? So, for example, we know the Memorial Cup this year in May is going to be played in Kelowna, and the Kelowna Rockets, as the host city, will be in the Memorial Cup. No matter what, even if they don't win all of their playoff series, if they get knocked out earlier, they get to host the Memorial Cup. Back in 2017, the Windsor Spitfires were the host. They got eliminated in the first round. And then they came back to play in the tournament because if you want fans in Windsor to go see the games, the Spitfires have to be there, right? And then Windsor won the tournament. And people get kind of frustrated with that. So you're always guaranteed your spot. Here's what makes Grant's question so interesting. Only one time that I can recall, I think it was the only time, has the Memorial Cup been taken away from the host team because the host team was so bad. And that was the 1990 Memorial Cup, which coincidentally the Kitchener Rangers participated in. It was one of the greatest Memorial Cups ever. Eric Lindros and the Oshawa Generals against Jason Firth, Mike Torkia, and so many others, and the Kitchener Rangers in the Memorial Cup final. But the team that was supposed to host it was the Hamilton Dukes. And they were such a bad team that year that the league said, we can't let you host because your team is terrible. And wouldn't you know, the Hamilton Dukes ultimately left Hamilton and became the Guelph Storm. And it is the Guelph Storm who will host the Memorial Cup next year. And the Guelph Storm finished in 7th place in the Western Conference this year. We all know they're going to be a much better team next year. I just think that makes Grant's question that much more interesting. What if the Guelph Storm are still a 7th place team next year? They won't be, but it's an interesting question from Grant, and there is the expanded answer for it. It's Rant or Rave on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. It is your Monday edition of Talkback, which means it's time to rant and or rave. Right back to the phones for Karen. Good afternoon, Karen.
Hello. Good afternoon to you.
What's on your mind today?
Well, it's a rave.
Okay.
I want it to be a rave because there's so much negativity these days. So I just wanted to call out that we did have some sad news in my community, Ayr, where we recently had a fire downtown. It's a pretty sad historic building, but fortunately all the folks that were included in that fire are safe and sound. Our little theater in Ayr is called the Ayr Community Theater, and they have a production coming up this week, and I believe they still have tickets available. And they are taking $3 from each ticket, and that money will go back to the victims of the fire. So I just wanted to call out that our community is really helping to support those in need, especially those that were impacted by the fire. And if you love Little Theater, this one's called Queen Millie of Galt, and basically it's some humor around an unexpected love story, and it looks like it's going to be a good production. It's March 25th to 29th. And people can get tickets at aircommunitytheater.com. And if you're interested, feel free to go onto the link, because money is going back to our community, back to those that really need help with the fire. And I just think it's an awesome thing that the community, which has a very tiny little budget of theater, is taking some proceeds and giving it back.
aircommunitytheater.com. The production of Queen Millie of Galt opens Wednesday, runs through Sunday. That's the 25th to the 29th. And you're donating $3 per ticket back to those folks who were displaced by the fire downtown a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
I think I got it all summed up there. Karen, what's your connection to the Ayr Community Theater?
I do not have a direct connection. I have gone to the theater and I enjoy it. I just wanted to bring this forward because I think it's a great thing that they are doing to help out our community and those who have been impacted by the fire. So I just thought it's a great story. It's a good rave, and it's a good Monday for those that might not have something to do this week to get out to the theater.
I love it. Thanks for spreading that good news. Where do they perform out of at the Ayr Community Theater?
It is at the old arena.
Yeah, okay.
And I know you're going to ask me, what is that arena called?
I think they just call it the Ayr Community Arena, don't they?
I think it's the Ayr Community Arena.
Yeah. Either way, I think when you say the old arena in Ayr, we know the one you're talking about. So,
yeah,
Karen, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that with us today.
You're welcome. Have a great rest of the day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye. Bye-bye. aircommunitytheater.com. There you go. $3 from every ticket of this week's production, opening Wednesday, going back to those folks who were displaced by the fire in downtown Ayr a few weeks back. Well done. Thanks for sharing that, Karen. Rudy, you're next on Rant or Rave.
Yeah. Hi, Mike. Were you talking about hosting the final hockey game there, the Memorial Cup?
Yes.
The team. The same rules apply in the World Cup FIFA, whoever the host country is gets to play, no matter where, if they qualified or not. And that's the only reason the United States got to play back in 1990 that year. I believe Germany won the World Cup that year. But, yeah, it's a good system. That way more people attend and you get more interaction with it.
All right, Rudy, I appreciate the call. I want to get in a first-time caller before we're done. EJ, I'm down to 30 seconds, though, but I want to hear from you.
Hello, Mike.
Hi.
Hi. My partner and I would like to join your force.
Well, I would be glad to put you both on the force. How about numbers 353 and 354?
Sounds fabulous.
Okay, EJ, what's your partner's name?
Michael.
I can remember that.
Maybe, eh?
Maybe.
And and I want to rave about Michael.
Well, isn't that lovely?
I was evicted from my apartment, main floor of a house, because my landlord took ill. I was that far from living on the street.
And Michael stepped in.
Yeah, I've known Michael for over 50-some years.
Well, that is so great to hear, EJ. Thank you for the call. We're late. We got to get the news. EJ and Michael join our growing Farwell Force for Good. I'll be back tomorrow morning at 9. My name is Mike Farwell. Bye for now.